Hello and welcome to our live stream event for tonight. So tonight we'll be sharing with you the fine details of the moon, live streamed into your home, courtesy of some of our members' astronomy equipment. We have somebody out towards near the South Australian border, and we also have someone up in Bendigo where we've got clear skies in one spot, rain happening at the moment in another, so we're going to have to work with the clouds. We have Steve Thurm coming on board to help pinpoint locations on the moon and discuss them with you. And following the live stream of our moon, we will begin the deep sky section where we'll have a look at galaxies, nebula and star clusters, which will also be live streamed into your home using the same equipment. But first, we must draw the second raffle. This raffle is for the QHY-CCD's mini guide scope, which was generously donated by Sidereal Trading. So I will get the raffle screen up and let's get that going. Okay, ready. Ignatius Calderon, we will make contact with you via email and share with you, and get your contact details, and we will send you out the guide scope. Congratulations. And once again, thank you to Sidereal Trading. Okay, now I'm just going to bring into the room Steve Thurm, so he can give us a little bit of an introduction to International Observe the Moon Night. Steve, welcome.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the ASV's International Observe the Moon Night session for 2020. As Mark kind of hinted at, we've all got our fingers crossed that the skies are going to stay reasonably clear. We've got a number of scopes out there, and hopefully one of them will be able to show us some clear sky. As the name International Observe the Moon Night session suggests, this is an observing session. So I'm going to give a little bit of guidance and commentary as we go along, but the main purpose of the evening is for you to see some live images of the moon. So with that in mind, Mark, can you bring in...
Let's bring Noel in, shall we?
Noel, I think.
Noel, how you going?
Yeah, doing well over here. Yourself?
Good. No more rain?
No, it has stopped. It has stopped. Although I just have to stop my mount from doing a meridian flip.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just caught us out right at the worst moment. So
that's okay. While you do that, I'll just explain to people what I meant by that comment. Noel was testing earlier this evening, and his screen went black. And he didn't think anything of it, and then all of a sudden the skies opened, and he very quickly had to run outside and pull everything apart and dry it all quickly and clean it all and hope that it worked, and thankfully everything is still working. So are you ready to go, Noel?
Yeah.
Are you able to bring up an image of the moon for us?
Yes. Yep, we've got a moon on screen, and I'm just getting in onto a very interesting location to start with.
All right, and while we're doing that, Neil, I promise you I will not call Noel Neil tonight. It's a running joke between Noel and Neil and myself. I keep getting them confused.
So just while everyone's having a look at Mare Tranquillitatis, really famous, one of the lunar impact basins or seas. What I'm going to do is I'll just give you a bit of an introduction with a few facts to start off with. And I'll start off, for those of you who've got clear skies at the moment, if you nip out and have a quick look, you'll see that the moon is currently in what we call its waxing gibbous phase. And it's 9 days old. So it's just gone past first quarter. So I'll explain what that means. So we start off with new moon. and that's when the moon lies between the Earth and the sun's rays. And all we see of the moon is, well, actually nothing really, because we only see the unilluminated side of the moon. And then over the next couple of weeks, what happens is that the moon moves through its waxing phase, and it starts off as a little crescent, and then that crescent grows and grows, and then gets to what's called the first quarter, which is when the moon isn't a quarter full, it's actually half full. But the reason it's called first quarter is because it's a quarter of the way through the full cycle, which takes 29 and a half days for the moon to go all the way around the Earth. So once it goes past first quarter, the moon then changes from being a crescent to being what's called gibbous. Gibbous is a translation of it is swollen. I think of it as fat. So it's a fat moon. And the gibbous moon then grows and grows and grows until it becomes the full moon. And the full moon is when the moon lies on the far side of the Earth and the sun's rays. So we actually get to see it fully illuminated. And the key thing here is that at full moon, the moon rises in the east at the same time as the sun sets in the west. And then the moon then kind of does the reverse thing. It goes back through a gibbous phase and then back through to a situation where it's half full, and then a crescent moon, and then back to new moon. And that actually takes 29 and a half days. As I say, at the moment, the moon is about 9 days old, so just past first quarter. Couple of other facts before we start looking at some specific features on the moon. I think this will help you to understand it a little bit more. So the moon is about 1/4 the diameter of the Earth. So it's actually 3,000, I'm looking down at my notes here, 3,476 kilometers across. And it's actually the 5th largest moon in the solar system. So given the size of the Earth compared with, say, the size of Jupiter or Saturn, the Earth has a really, really big moon. And as I said, the moon orbits the Earth every 29 and a half days. And it's at an average distance of 384,000 kilometers. The reason I say an average distance is because the orbit is slightly elliptical. And the minimum distance, which is called perigee, is 360,000 kilometers. And the maximum distance, which is called apogee, is about 400,000 kilometers. Now, the interesting thing as well is that the moon spins on its axis at the same speed as the Earth spins on its axis. And that's the reason why we always see the same face of the moon. We never get to see the far side of the moon. We always see just the near side. It does sort of wobble a little bit, and that's called libration, where we get to sort of sneak round the corner a bit one side and then sneak round the corner the other way. But most of the time we just get to see that one face. The most likely origin of the moon is what's called the giant impact. It's one of the names for it. And this is where an asteroid or a small planet about the size of Mars actually smashed into the young Earth. And what happened was it kind of really smashed hard. And then there was a huge cloud of debris that went into near Earth orbit around the Earth, but then eventually coalesced back into the moon. The interesting thing is that the moon rocks returned by the Apollo astronauts confirm that the moon has existed for about 4.6 billion years. So really, as long as the solar system and the sun has kind of existed, it's very early days. So that's a little bit of an introduction. what we're going to do now is we're going to go in and look at some of the different objects that we can see on the moon. We're going to start by looking at some of the different kinds of craters that there are visible, and then move on to look at some of the other geological features. I think we've got about 10 or 12 objects that we'll be looking at. Really depends on how much time we've got and whether we can see them all. So the one thing that the moon is not short of is craters. There's about 500 million craters on the moon, which are larger than 10 meters in diameter. That includes the far side, of course. Just so that this is the equipment that Noel is using to view the moon at the moment. I don't know whether he wants to talk about that at all, or Mark, whether you want to chip in.
I think we might leave that one for Noel. Noel knows all about his equipment.
Yeah, yep. So it's a entry-level kind of Newtonian telescope. It's not really a lot different to the 8-inch Dob that a lot of people have as their viewing telescope. But what makes this one handy for photography and this sort of thing is that it's on an equatorial mount. So this is an EQ6R mount, and that's helping track the stars, or in fact counteract the Earth's rotation, and it's helping me just guide across the sky with the moon, so we can stay stationary on it for the evening. And I'll be able to adjust that slightly around. On the profile there, I've mentioned I've got a Canon DSLR. I swapped between two cameras on here. At the last minute, I changed over to a Zoo ASI 224 camera, just so I can get in a bit closer. But later on tonight, I'll be swapping back to the Canon to look at the nebula and galaxies, if you hang around for that.
Thanks, Noel. So as I mentioned, we've got 500 million craters larger than 10 meters in diameter. And in fact, about 10,000 of these are visible through an average-sized amateur telescope. So what we're going to have a look at is we're going to have a look at three types of crater. We've got the ancient impact basins, or maria, and you can actually see a couple of those at the moment there, the dark grey patches. We've what are called the walled plains, which are very old and lava-filled craters. And then we've got the much younger impact craters. So I'll go into those in a little bit more detail as we go along. So just sort of focusing in on the impact basins, or maria, the early astronomers thought that these large dark patches, of which you can see a couple there, were actually that they might be seas. And that's the reason why they're called maria, which is Latin for sea, I think. We now know that they're not actually seas, but these are actually very large impact basins that flooded with molten basaltic lava in the very early times of the moon. The lava, molten lava, was actually the viscosity of motor oil when it was molten. So you can see it would flow quite quickly across these impact basins. So once we found out that that they weren't actually seas, it was a bit disappointing, really, for Neil and Buzz, because when they got to the moon, they thought they might be able to go for a paddle in the on the shores of the Sea of Tranquility, but no, they weren't going to be able to do that. There was no sea there. So in terms of age, these impact basins, or maria, are really old. They date back to the very beginnings of the moon. So they were formed between 3 and 4.3 billion years ago. And And that was during a period when the moon was really getting pounded by big asteroids, and the moon itself was still relatively molten, so there was a lot of volcanic activity. Now, we're already looking at Mare Tranquillitatis, and of course, as I kind of mentioned before, this was where Apollo 11 landed. And if you, thank you, thanks, Noel. So Noel's pointer there is showing you roughly where the Apollo 11, the Eagle, landed in that part of Mare Tranquillitatis, which covers virtually the whole of the centre of the screen there.
Now, Steve, I know we're going to get some questions from people who are going to ask, can we see any man-made equipment on the moon? So let's get that one out of the way straight away, shall we?
Not with a telescope. So that any of you who've been on to the net and had a look at images provided that were taken by the LRO, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, will know that you can actually see the bottom stage of the lunar landers for all of the Apollo missions, and you can see footprints that go out from sort of trails, if you like, that go out from the lunar landers over to where they put down experiments. But with telescopes from the Earth, no, you can't see anything. So those who say, "Oh, can I see the flag? Can I see the flag?" No, you can't.
Yeah.
Of course, that helps to perpetuate the conspiracy theory that never went.
Just a quick one, Steve, because you're talking about these being craters. Here's a question for you. Has anyone ever watched an impact on the moon or of the moon?
I don't actually know. I know that there was. Do you remember there was the famous impact going into Jupiter?
Yes, Shoemaker-Levy.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. There's actually not very much activity anymore. Fortunately, there's not a lot of asteroids and things like that flying around. Most of the impacts that we see on the moon are really, really old. And these days, there's actually not very much debris flying around the solar system. It's kind of been captured mainly by the large gas giants. So Jupiter is our friend in this regard. Most of the asteroids and debris floating around actually ends up impacting into Jupiter, because Jupiter has so hell of a lot stronger gravity than the rocky planets further in towards the sun.
It's like our big brother, isn't it?
It is. It's our friendly big brother as well. So,
okay, so there we go. We've got Neil has shared a link about lunar impacts. So that's a good one to have.
Oh, thanks for that, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
So what we can see here is a couple of other impact basins. So these the ridge of mountains in the middle there are called the Apennine Mountains, and we've on one side of the Apennine Mountains we've got the Mare Imbrium, the Sea of Rains, and on the other side, just up to the top there is the Mare Serenitatis, the Sea of Serenity. As I say, they sit either side of the Apennine mountain range. Well, kind of while we're there, I don't know if we can see these. On the sort of floor of the Mare Imbrium, you can kind of see little wavy lines every so often. I don't know whether Neil can kind of point any of those out. What these are called is wrinkle ridges, and initially it was thought that these might be where layers of lava had kind of flowed over the top of other layers of lava, because the key thing with these large impact basins is that they're full of lava. That's why they look very smooth and flat. But the reality is that they're actually formed by compression activity well after the lava has kind of gone hard. Okay, so those are the impact basins.
So now, Steve, I think Andy has got his telescope set up on your third item.
Not quite good.
Not quite there. Getting there.
Yep. Sorry, I'm just 3. I'm getting close.
No worries.
So Andy, have you now got clear skies over your way?
Well, yeah.
Cool.
Just.
Oh, good. So that's that's Mare Serenitatis, which Noel is showing there as well. You can see that all of the any detail that there would have been has been completely sort of obliterated by the dark basaltic lava. So basalt is a very dark grey rock. If you think the Giant's Causeway in Ireland is made out of basalt, it's a very similar kind of rock. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the next type of right. So I'm just watching them as we move here.
Yeah.
Noel's doing a great job here.
Yeah, he's doing really well. I'm on number 3.
There we go. We'll jump over to number 3, shall we, Steve?
We can do. We've kind of caught that anyway.
Yeah.
We'll jump right on it, shall we? There we go.
Let's have a look. There we go.
I'll just knock the gain down a bit.
So that's the Mare Serenitatis.
Yes.
Something you can see there, just that crater up to the top. Do you see how it's throwing out like a ray down into the mare? That's ejecta material from when the asteroid hit, and it kind of blasts it out across. You'll see. Hopefully, we'll be able to see some of the rays coming out of Tycho in a little bit, which is probably the most well-known of the craters that has ejecta rays coming out of it. At full moon, they're very, very bright. We'll have a look at that very shortly. Let's go and have a look back. If we can go back to Noel again. So what we've got here is the 3 craters which are just sort of in the center in a line there. They're actually just with those 3 craters, we actually get to see quite a bit of sort of history, if you like, of how the impact craters have happened and have evolved over time. So the crater which is on the left-hand side is called Ptolemaeus, which has a silent P at the beginning of it. Now, you can see that has relatively low walls around it. That's why it's called a walled plain. It's a very ancient crater. And just to give you an idea of scale as well, Ptolemaeus is 153 kilometers across. So that's significantly bigger than the sort of Greater Melbourne area. It's a huge crater. But you can see that it formed very early, between 3 and 4 billion years ago, and has virtually filled up with lava. And then over time, the rim has kind of eroded away and it's been obliterated by other impacts. And in fact, the crater next to it to the right, which is called Alphonsus, which is 118 kilometers wide. That also is filled with lava, but you can actually see there how the impact came after Ptolemaeus, because it sort of eats into the side of the rim of Ptolemaeus. And then the third crater, which is over to the right again, is called Arzakel, and that's 97 kilometers wide. But this is a very different crater. So this is a much younger impact crater, and you can see that it has quite a bit of detail in it. The rim is actually much higher, and you can actually see that the material is sort of piled up on the inner edges of the rim as well. So that's a much younger crater. What we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at another couple of craters that are much more famous than Arzakel. And I'm going to ask Noel to try and navigate through to Copernicus, which is there, I think. Yeah. So if you bring that one into the middle.
I think Andy's on that one from a slightly different angle and a bit closer.
Get between those and have a look.
Yeah. So let's start with Noel's one here, and then we'll jump across to Andy's view as well. We'll see the difference. I guess it's a good way to show people the difference in equipment as well.
So this is, as I say, this is one of the most famous craters on the moon. And the reason is because when you see it close to the terminator, the terminator is the line that goes between the lit side of the moon and the still dark side of the moon. You get a lot of shadow forming. That's a really nice image there. And you can see that the light coming in, the sun's rays coming in from the top side of the image there and reflecting off the far sort of lower rim of the crater, and then that huge shadow on the inside. So we actually can't really see any of the detail at the moment inside the crater because of that shadow. But while we're
Andy's view.
Good stuff. So you see that's at a slightly different orientation as well. So with the light coming in from the left of the screen.
Yeah.
So sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's coming from the west. So I've spun my camera around to the way you'd see it with your eyes. And the Terminator running north-south.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Andy. Just some little facts here. So as I said, this impact crater was formed in relatively recent history, and by relatively recent history, I'm talking about less than 1 billion years ago. And if we could see the bottom of the crater, which we can't because of the shadow, we would see that there's actually very little lava flooding. And the reason for that is that most of the volcanic activity on the moon finished about 3 billion years ago. So the moon is now pretty dead in terms of volcanic activity. So
we actually did have a question on that, but Steve, before you push on, we do have another one from Adet. Why do many craters have a belly button center point?
Ah, right. Okay. So the mountains. So you've actually sort of preempted what I was going to talk about here. So that's great. So these newer craters a lot of them have the belly button in the middle. It's actually a mountain in the middle, and the reason for that mountain is that when the impact crater, when the asteroid hits, the moon itself actually kind of bounces back after it's been pushed in and forms that mountain. So just to in the middle of Copernicus, there's a central mountain which is about 1,000 meters high. So, over 3,000 feet. Copernicus itself was formed 900 million years ago, and it's 93 kilometers across. And it was formed by an asteroid which was probably about 10 kilometers across.
That answered another question we had about what size of asteroids and meteorites are making these craters. So you've actually answered it. Thank you, Steve.
So fairly small ones now, but obviously the asteroids that form the impact basins, the mare, the seas, would have been huge asteroids in comparison. The other interesting thing, and probably the reason why we can see such a wonderful shadow there inside the crater, is that the plane, the sort of lowest level inside the crater, is actually 3,750 meters below the rim. So nearly 4,000 meters. That's a long way. Copernicus is one of the most famous craters on the moon. And one of the reasons is that it was actually the start of what was called the picture of the century. And that was taken by the Lunar Orbiter 2 back in 1966. And it was done at an oblique angle with the Lunar Orbiter only 130 kilometers above the surface, so that you could actually kind of see across the crater and see, the rim and the mountains in the middle. So if you get a chance, have a look at the picture of the century. I have to say, I went and had a look at it, and it's compared with what we're getting from, say, the LRO, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. It's not very high resolution, but back in 1966, it was phenomenal.
We have another question, Steve.
Yep.
Don't giggle too much at who's asking this question. Mr. Dave Painter would like to know what the temperature would be on the surface of the moon. I'm sure he already knows, but
yeah, perhaps he's testing me out there. I don't have a definitive answer to that, other than it fluctuates significantly. So it goes from being pretty warm when you're in the sunshine to being really quite cold when you're not in the sunshine. We're talking well into the minuses here.
Steve, since we've been talking about craters, could an asteroid impact the moon enough to throw its orbit off the Earth? Its orbit off Earth? Orbit off the Earth, of course.
I suspect there aren't any asteroids of sufficient size to kind of to do that. In the early days, absolutely. In the sort of 4 billion years ago. But I think most of those big objects have either disappeared into the big planets, or they're in some sort of order now, orbiting the sun or out in the asteroid belt. I don't think there's anything that would do that. I think that person's probably been watching some interesting movie.
I remember that name from the junior session. I believe she's a teacher.
I think I'm just trying to see here whether we can see this. Just below Copernicus, there's a dark spot. There's a white spot, and just above it, there's a dark spot. If I'm right, that dark spot is a crater called Fouth. It could be the one further down. I'm just trying to get a gauge of scale here. Bear with me. I'll have a look. Oh no, I've gone the wrong side. So it's actually above. You can. We've come out of focus there. Sorry about that. Can we get that back in focus, or was that just the seeing conditions?
No, there we go. I think I can see the white spot you're talking about above that.
Yeah, no, I've gone the wrong side. Apologies. if you come, so up where the pointer is there, the mouse pointer, there's a little crater which is called Fouth, and Fouth is shaped like a keyhole. And so the people say, oh, well, Copernicus is the doorknob and Fouth is the keyhole that sits below it. That kind of only really works when you're looking at it from the northern hemisphere. In the same way that the man in the moon is really a northern hemisphere kind of a thing. So there's a face of the man in the moon, which is formed. The two eyes are actually two of the seas that we looked at earlier on. So Mare Tranquillitatis and Mare Ibrium form the two eyes of the man in the moon. But it's the wrong way up for us here, and it kind of just doesn't really work. So let's have a quick look at, I'm just looking at the time here. We're okay.
Neil's moved to your sixth object for you.
So this is Tycho, which is a very young crater, very, very young. And by very, very young, it's about 100 million years old, which is very young. This is the crater that when you look at the full moon, and you can see those very bright rays coming out from somewhere, they're coming out from Tycho. And because Tycho is very young, it's been able to throw all that ejector material over the top of all the other craters in, well, not just in the near vicinity, but halfway across the moon. Tycho that's 85 kilometers across. You can actually see with Tycho the central mountain in the middle there. Now, I think I read that the asteroid that formed Tycho was a bit smaller than Copernicus. Perhaps it was about 5 kilometers across. It's a bit of a sort of a guesstimate anyway. But the floor in Tycho is 5 kilometers below the rim. And there's that central mountain that you can see, that little belly button. I like that term, actually. I like belly button. Is 1,600 meters high. So pretty damn high. And as I say, it has a spectacular ray system when you see it in the full moon. We can't really see any of the rays coming out with this zoomed in, with this close-up view. We go back. You can, yes, so you can see them heading out to the sort of the northwest there. Thanks, Noel. All right, so
I was just going to say, if you're ready for Object 7, Andy's got his already on Object 7 for you.
Oh, this is great. What
I've got them jumping from one.
Well done, Mark. So we're going to look at the mountain ranges, and we're going back here. We're going to just look at a couple of the mountain ranges. This is the Montes Apenninus, or the Apennine Mountains. That mountain range is 250 kilometers long, and some of the peaks in there are over 5,000 meters, which is, what's that, 15,000, 16,000 feet in old money. So pretty high, a lot higher than Kosciuszko, which is what, just over 2,000 meters. So over twice as high. So there are some really high mountains. I mean, they obviously don't look as though they're 5,000 meters, but they are. Interesting thing here is in that sort of middle of the range there is where Apollo 15 landed, close to what's called the Hadley Rill. And I'm going to talk about rills. Thanks for that. That's sort of roughly where it is. And this was one of the missions where they had the Lunar rover with them, and they were able to travel from the lunar lander to actually have a closer look at the rill, which is actually a collapsed lava tube. And there are lots of these on the moon. We'll have a look down a little bit. There's another mountain range that we'll have a look at, which is called the Lunar Alps, or the Montes Alpes. Go the other way. Doing a great job, guys, with this. This is wonderful. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So this range here, which you can see, as I say, is called the Montes Alpes, the Lunar Alps. The Mons Blanc, which is in the northern half of that range there, is about 3,600 meters high. And you can see there that the range is actually cut through by something called the Valles Alpes, the Alpine Valley. And I'll sort of explain a little bit about that. What the Valles Alpes is, it's where you've got two fault lines where the ground has actually collapsed between them to form a valley. So a little bit like the East African Rift Valley, where the ground between the faults has actually dropped down. It has a sort of technical term, which is it's called a graben. That valley, which you can clearly see there, sort of splitting the range in two, is about 130 kilometers long, and it's 10 kilometers wide. The interesting thing as well, and it obviously doesn't look it from here, is those sides of the valley there rise up to 2,000 meters above the valley floor. So, it drops away about the height of Mount Kosciuszko. So significant. The interesting thing is a lot of these features, they're not the escarpments and these fault lines, they're not vertical cliffs. They're actually gradual slopes along the fault line.
Perfect for hiking.
Yeah. Now, I bet I've thrown Noel now, who's...
Noel's got 8, 9, and 10 ready for you to go.
Oh, let me have a look.
There we go.
Okay. Noel, where have you come back to here? Sorry. Okay. We were talking about wrinkle ridges, which just hold it there. Oh, we've gone.
And we were running like such a well-oiled machine as well.
I knew I threw them by going a bit out of sequence there. I thought I'd make it easier for the guys by covering things off where we were. So this is Mare Imbrium with Copernicus off to the right-hand side there. I talked about wrinkle ridges, and I think I've covered those off actually. So we'll kind of skip over that. One of the things that I'm not sure whether we can actually see are called domes, and the most famous domes are off into the darker side of Copernicus. I don't think we can actually see. You can kind of see some of them just to the left of Copernicus there. Come down to the dark. There we go. So do you see over to the left, there are those sort of like blisters. Those continue round into the dark area. I don't know if you can put the gain up a little bit and we might be able to see them. No, it won't do. I'll just explain what they are. So the domes are actually they're actually volcanoes, shield volcanoes. So a shield volcano is a volcano with where the lava is fairly fluid. Probably on Earth, the most famous shield volcanoes are in Hawaii. If you think about when you see pictures of the Hawaiian volcanoes, how the lava kind of runs around quite a lot. So those blisters are actually shield volcanoes, and they've kind of built up over time with successive eruptions of lava. We're just, I think we've covered, no, we've done the Valles Alpes.
Did we miss object 11 on your list, Steve? Or
look, possibly. No, I was going to jump to that one. I think that's next for us.
I think Andy's moving his way there now. So
this is, whether he can find it is, no, it's not there.
I don't know if Andy's there yet.
I think we're there. No,
I think we are. Maybe.
there it is there. Okay. So, yeah, well done, guys. You've found that. So, can you see just in the middle, just slightly off to the right of the screen, that very straight line there? That's called Rupes recta, or the straight wall. And that's another example of an escarpment that's formed along a fault line. And probably the most well-known of these. Now, that's actually 120 kilometres, and the escarpment goes about 400 metres high. But again, it's another one of these objects that looks pretty sort of sharp, as though it's a cliff, but it's actually not a cliff. It's more of a slope than a cliff. But as I say, Rupes recta is probably the most well-known. So the final sort of geological feature I'd like to have a look at, called rills. And I talked about the Hadley rill earlier on, which was the rill that the guys on Apollo 15 went to have a look at. The rills are erosion channels that have been carved into the lunar surface by fast-running molten lava. Do you remember I said that the lava, when it's molten, is a sort of viscosity of motor oil, so it's pretty thin. So it's a bit like the way water would carve into rock over time here on Earth. Now, it's not certain as to whether these rills existed in tubes or whether they were on the surface, and then subsequently the tubes kind of collapsed. But there's a really good example of one which is called Rima Hyginus, which is in Mare Vaporum, and that's the Valles Alpes. So I don't know if one of the guys has moved on to have a look at Rima Hyginus. Sorry, guys, I'm kind of throwing you around a little bit here.
I don't mind being thrown around. Andy's got it. So let's go to Andy's. Sorry, Noel.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I can see it. It's actually not coming out very, very clear. One of the reasons is that it's not very close to the terminator, so we're not getting the shadow that we would do with some of the objects that we've looked at closer. So the Rima Hyginus is, yes, you can see it. Thanks there, Andy. You can probably see in that line there, there's a couple of what look like small craters. They're actually not craters. They're collapsed volcanic pits. And when you get a very clear image of the Rima Hyginus, you can actually see that they're not craters because they don't have a sort of a raised rim on them. They just drop away. And this is obviously where when the lava has moved away and it's left a hollow, eventually the roof of of the rill has actually just dropped in, sort of caved in, if you like. So that's we can't actually see that one very well. That's a shame, but it's a lovely object to see. If you have a look at that on the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter images that were put out by NASA, you can zoom in on that and see a lot of detail, really good detail.
Beautiful.
Okay, well,
We've been through our list.
I've kind of got to the end of the list there.
So I think what we should do is we might just ask our viewers if there's anything in particular that they might like to try and see other than the items left on the moon, because we can't see those. Is there any particular crater or area of the moon that you might want to see that we might be able to get up tonight if it's visible? So if you want to just chuck those in the comments, or even if there's questions you've got about the moon.
Remember that
Neil has got one for you. Neil would like to see Messier crater, please. Andy, can you make that happen? Andy's given me a thumbs up, Neil, so he's going to try and move it there for you. You are a troublemaker. That's because I called Neil Nolan Noel Neil. Is this my punishment? Is that what it is? So we'll see if we can get Messier crater. So if anyone's got any questions that aren't to do with the Morg's pulsing, here we go. Nuve Musha would like to see the terminal line, please. So we'll do the Messier crater if Andy can find it.
So the Messier crater is in Mare Fecunditatis. So it's much further over towards the western side. So it's very brightly lit. But I think Noel was checking whether he could see this one earlier on. So we'll be able to find it. It's one of those situations where you kind of need to sort of zoom out and then zoom in just to find where you actually are on.
Oh, Steve, I have a question for you. It's probably a question of the night for me.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, who's 31, wants to know, can you see the Decepticons on the moon? That's bringing me back to my childhood.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. That's a ripping question. We have a good one, a legitimate question. Fiona's son would like to know what caused the US flag to turn white. I was under the impression that, and I'm sure Neil will give us the answer, but I was under the impression that it turned white because of the radiation, or
I guess so. I don't think it would be sort of dust, because there isn't really.
There you go, ultraviolet radiation. Neil has confirmed my suspicions. Thank you, Neil.
Well, I learned something there.
I think we all did. Okay, what else have we got? What other questions have we got? Tom sends his thanks. Sorry we couldn't answer that one for you, Tom. I always thought the Decepticons were hiding on the dark side of the moon myself, but
just a couple of comment. For those of you on the call who are ASV members or are thinking about joining the ASV, we actually have a thing called the Lunar 100 guide, which was put together by one of our members, a chap called Ron Borum, and it's something that was proposed initially, the Lunar 100, by a guy called C. Wood back in 2004 in Sky and Telescope. The Lunar 100 has 100. Some of the objects are fairly easy to look at. Some of them are a little bit more challenging. So it's a bit like our Messier 100 challenge that we have to look at 100 Messier objects through your own telescope and without cheating. With a go-to scope, you have to star hop to them. you may be talking about Messier 100 in the deep sky session later on. I don't know. But the Lunar 100 is certainly worth having a look at. It can be downloaded from the ASV website from the download area. I use that to put together a few of the objects that we've looked at tonight.
Okay, there was some other questions in here. I know, Nouveau, I know your Morg's one was no less ridiculous than Decepticons, but Decepticons was quite funny. Why is the dark side of the moon so much more heavily cratered? From John Breen.
That's a really good question, and there are not so many mare, so the impact basins on the far side. I think it's something to do with the gravitational impact of the Earth. I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
All right, we have another good one here. One of the moon's craters has many lines coming out of it. What is the name of the crater, and have there been any theories on what the lines are and how they've been formed? I reckon you know the answer to this one.
I think I do, and I think we talked about it earlier on. But
yes,
so I'm pretty sure that it's Tycho. And as I said earlier on, it's one of the youngest big craters on the moon, about 100 million years old. The lines are the ejecta that got thrown out when the asteroid impacted on the moon. And you can see they kind of go halfway across the moon from where Tycho actually is. It's a fantastic view and incredibly bright as well when you see the rays in the full moon.
There we go. And question answered. So I think that unless there are any more questions, I think that might well finish up. What have you got there, Andy?
The messier crater, sorry. It took me a while.
There you go, Neil. You got your crater.
That's what you're looking for, is that correct?
Is that what you're after, Neil? And Neil will comment in a second, I'm sure he will.
The interesting thing, we were talking about ejecta with Tycho. You can see the rays coming out from Messier there, from sort of going from left to right. And in fact, you can see a few sort of ejecta rays. So the newer craters will always throw out ejecta rays. That's it there. Yeah.
I'll just knock the gain. It's very bright here. Whoops, that's a bit better. Yeah, here it is here. This one here with the ejecta coming out.
Yeah. Well done.
Challenge accepted, Neil. Challenge completed.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So I think that sort of brings us to the end of the moon observing portion of the night. And we're going to start moving into the deep sky section. Unless there's any more questions that might pop up, I am trying to stall for a second because I do have some notes coming through for something that I'd like to read out for everybody between the two sessions to do with some fundraising for the ASV for our All Abilities Astronomy project that we are currently working on, which, for those of you who bought raffle tickets, that is where your money went to. We've managed so far to raise just under $3,600 for the All Abilities Astronomy project at our dark sky site, which will see wheelchair accessible pathways put around the site and a specific dome and telescope for less able-bodied people, so people in wheelchairs, people with mobility issues, to be able to come and look through telescopes at our dark sky site and see what we all get to see. So I do have some stuff coming, but it's not quite ready yet, unfortunately. We do have something else to look at. Could we have a look at the Archimedes crater? Getting a thumbs up, so we're going to bring that one in. Now, while we are waiting for that, I think some of you might have seen me pop up or seen the virtual sausage sizzle for the Lions Club in Heathcote. Now, the Lions Club in Heathcote, they come to every single one of our star parties, every one of them, every year. However, this year, we haven't been able to have a star party since the start of March. This was meant to be one of our star parties this weekend. It would have been a star party on site, and the Lions Club would have been there, but unfortunately, they haven't been able to do any fundraising since COVID-19 hit. So we've set up an online virtual, well, it says virtual lunch, but it's virtual lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner, where you can buy virtual snagging bread, and if you want the onions on top, we're not Bunnings. You can have the onions on top. You can go and get yourself an egg and bacon burger or a normal burger, or you can buy a virtual Lions Club Christmas cake. All of the money donated through your virtual purchases goes directly to Lions Club in Heathcote, who, as I said, have not been able to do any fundraising for over 7 months now, essentially. So if you could support them, it would be wonderful, because they have supported us for so many years at our star parties.
So just to talk to Archimedes, we had Archimedes in the field of view earlier on when we were looking at the Apennine Mountains. It actually sits in Mare Imbrium, and it's just in the top right-hand corner there. It's 82 kilometres. All right, that's Archimedes. Oh, it's coming down into the view. Are we getting? Is that cloud cover, or is that just the way the scope works?
Oh,
No, that's cloud.
That's cloud.
There's a lot of clouds.
So, to ask the question, there it is. So there we go. So it's another walled plain. Can you see how it's filled with lava, and it's got sort of the walls of the rim walls are very low. So it's another very ancient crater, fairly big, 82 kilometres. So what's that, about the size of Greater Melbourne?
Depends how big your 5 kilometre bubble is.
Yeah, I think we're down at sort of Messier scale there, but I suspect Messier is probably bigger than the 5 kilometre bubble.
I'd say it is as well. So I think we're clouded out now, unfortunately. Is that, would I be right there, Andy? You're getting clouded out there?
Yeah, I'm just riding the gain. I'm just sitting on the gain, going up and down, up and down.
Following it through.
The crater just down to the lower left there is Aristillus, and the one just above Aristillus is Autolycus, according to my maps.
Here we go, blown out. Oh.
Doing our best to keep this going, guys.
Can I just, as we're closing out, Mark, can I just say a really big thank you to Andy and to Noel there for their excellent work with the telescopes. It's not easy because, unfortunately, unlike looking at the deep sky objects where you can use the go-to facility of the computer systems, with the objects on the moon, you have to kind of hunt for them manually. So they've done a really great job on finding those objects, particularly the ones that are further over to the west that were in brighter sunlight. So well done, guys.
Thank you. Yep, I've learned a lot in the last couple of days. And I've got a new hobby. I never used to look at the moon much because I'm mainly deep sky guy, but I'm actually got a bit more interest now. So I think I'm going to take a lot more images of the moon. I might do a mosaic, a really high detailed mosaic over the next.
If you do, please let me know, and I will share that on our main public Facebook page and Instagram page for everyone to see. Now I have a lovely little bit of wording that I'd like to read out to do with our All Abilities Astronomy project. So Let's get that one up, shall we? Because everyone loves a good banner. There we go. Pathways to the planets. So we've had some people asking us how they can donate to the ASV over the weekend since we started. Mainly because they've been enjoying the sessions and also because they've been enjoying my dry, lame humour. The team are currently working on an amazing project to improve the accessibility to our dark sky site for low mobility and low vision people with an interest in astronomy. This project will also improve the site and facilities for everyone, including some of our aging members as well. This project, Pathway to the Planets, includes upgrades to the paths at our dark sky site, along with construction of astronomical equipment that will enable low mobility and low vision people with an interest in astronomy to enjoy the wonders of the night sky. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, our main fundraising activities have been completely sidelined, but we're working on alternative projects, so please stay tuned for further details. In the meantime, you can go to that link that's scrolling across the bottom there. We will post the link in our main Facebook page as well. And if you feel that you would like to donate to the cause, it would be greatly appreciated so that we can bring astronomy to more of the people. That would be great. Now, Steve, I'm wondering if you'd like to hang around.
I can hang around.
Yeah, I say that because Darren, my partner in crime for Deep Sky, is working off his phone to hook into us tonight, and he may drop out. So I'd like to have some backup if that's possible.
Do you want me to stay on the...
Is that possible? Would you be able to do that for us?
I can do that if you just give me a couple of minutes to go and...
I'll put you in the background for the moment, and then we'll bring you back shortly.
Thank you.
And I'll do that. Okay, so that leaves Noel and I here in front of everybody. So that concludes. Thumbs up, Noel. That concludes the international moon observing session, and we're now going to start looking at some deep sky objects, things that are not in the solar system. So we're talking galaxies, we're talking globular clusters, open clusters, nebula, so star forming regions. We have a very knowledgeable man by the name of Darren coming along, jumping in with us shortly. He's going to be able to answer any questions you have, and he will also give us some information about the objects that we're going to be looking at. We have, I believe, 14, maybe 15 objects on this list at the moment. But I know what the deep sky guys are like. Being a deep sky guy myself, we're likely to look at more. So stick around because you're going to see some amazing stuff. So I'm just going to bring Darren in. Darren, can you hear us?
Yes, how you going?
Aha, we have Darren. Beautiful. So Noel, have you got an object that we can jump to start with? You're on mute, Noel.
Is that better?
That is much better.
Fantastic. Yeah, building up a live stack of the Carina Nebula at the moment.
So that's our first object for the night. Shall I bring it up? Is it ready for me to bring up?
It's a work in progress. It is ready. Yeah. Heck, why not? But it's a work in progress.
You did say yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a live stream of the Carina Nebula, and that's using Noel's deep sky equipment, the same equipment here, the Saxon 200 F5 Newtonian with the Skywatcher EQ6 mount. That's not the Canon though, is it, Noel?
Yeah, so I've on that mount picture you can see there, if you bring that one up again, Mark, this one here, because Carina Nebula is huge. So I'm actually using a 500mm camera lens for this one. So I've got that running piggyback on top of my scope there with another Canon at the back of it. So there's yeah, it's a compact, it's a mirror lens or a Maxitov style lens, so it's quite short and fat. I shout out to Paul Gardner if he's watching. Now the
He's trying to.
yeah, so I'm trying to grab that shot through that camera. The other thing that's going on at the moment, you can see a neighbour's tree in there, is this is very low on the southwest horizon, and this is why it's the first object for the night, is it'll soon be gone. So I'm trying to grab something there before it disappears, because it's a beautiful nebula, especially if there's anyone not from the southern hemisphere looking. It's something you don't often get to see.
Wonderful. So we'll move that out of the way so we can actually see the object. Can we make that larger by any chance? For any chance? No.
Get in there a bit. Probably a bit too much. And this is also getting some light pollution. Being south, I'm just north of Bendigo, so I'm getting a lot of urban lighting interfering here.
So Darren, do you have any information you'd like to share with our viewers about Carina Nebula? Let's see if we can.
Where's he? I think he's.
He is there. He might be on delay. This is why I asked for Steve to hang around for us. Good old technology doesn't always work.
Certainly can.
There we go.
I guess the first thing would be for the new astronomers or those wanting to learn.
I think we've lost Darren there. Apologies, Darren is working off his phone. So
You going there, Mark? You got me?
yeah, we got you now. Yeah, so go for it.
Yeah, I'm still here, mate.
All right, so Noel, while we're waiting for Darren to get back in time.
Yeah, mate. So as for the new astronomers, and it's quite an easy job. Either.
Yeah, we keep losing him. So I might just pop him out the back for a second there. Noel, do you have any information about Eta Carina you'd like to share with us? We did have a question, why are there so many different versions, colours of nebula? And Adette's asked, and this is a good one with the colours there that you've got showing in red.
I get there's a couple of things going on in that the colors, a lot of the colors we see are invisible. So we're having to use filters on sensors and also manipulate the colors so that we can visualize them. The problem also is that with the invisible ones, we'll use filters and represent those colors artificially. So with a hydrogen alpha, we may choose to represent that as red. And there's a few different palettes that science institutions use around the world. Probably the most popular one would be the Hubble palette, but there are certainly others which are quite a bit different. So you'll be looking at a nebula that's suddenly gorgeous sort of reds and yellows, and then suddenly someone does something in blue and green, and you think, well, what's going on there? And it's just they've represented the same data in a different way. It's not necessarily right or wrong or anything. And the other thing is a lot of images are manipulated to be pleasing to the eye as well. There's a science element of astrophotography, and then there's also an art element as well. And it's not a black or white situation there. It's a bit of a spectrum. So you'll have the purists in both camps, but that's why probably things can vary quite so much. And if you look at the the recent winners of an international competition this year from the, trying to think, it's Greenwich Observatory. There was a lot of art impression kind of photography that was highly regarded this year, whereas previous years it's a lot of scientific images have been favoured by the judges. So yeah, things vary. And the other thing is what's actually out there. Its composition varies. So we've got hydrogen, massive, huge sort of clouds of hydrogen, and that's that dominant red that we often see. But there's also other nebulas which are composed of oxygen. So yeah, you'll have those sorts of issues to deal with as well. Hopefully that sort of covers it a bit there.
Okay, so we have a nice little question. As soon as we've answered this question, I'm going to try and bring Darren back in. Oh, sorry, Adet. I know I confused Noel and Neil all the time. There is a running joke between the three of us, and I've renamed them Neol, so that solves any confusion. They both answer that way. We had it. Now, where would that question go? I've lost it now because I was. There we go. Sally wants to know what program is used to display the images that you're currently displaying.
So I'm currently using SharpCap. This is software that you're able to get free. I've actually got the Pro version. It's a small license fee. It's I think under $20 a year to have the Pro license, and it just gives you a few extra features that aren't necessarily important for what I'm doing here at the moment. So if you wanted to start doing this kind of thing, you can do this with free software. And the SharpCap, there's another one that's kind of similar, that's more so for planetary work, called Fire Capture, and they'll also use it for solar imaging as well. But yeah, SharpCap's a really good way to sort of dip your toe in. You can get images. These images are being fed live off of a DSLR camera, so it's automatically saving the images into a folder on the PC. This SharpCap software is monitoring that folder, bringing each of those frames in and manipulating them live on screen. And then I'm adjusting them the way that they're being represented on screen to try and make it more pleasing to the eye.
So I think you've got 18 frames stacked on this image, am I right?
Yeah, and these are 20-second frames. So it's I want to try and bring out some of the nebulosity, but I'm also fighting it being low on the horizon, and I've got light pollution. So if I was wanting to image this for a session for the evening, this is not the time or place to do it. I'd want to pick a time of the year when this was high in the sky and be away from the horizon and light pollution. So, but yeah, I wanted to show this one to everyone because it's the beauty.
Okay, so we've got one last question, and then I'm going to try and bring Darren back in after this question. Here we go. Does a nebula ever disperse, and why can we see them? Do you want Steve to answer that one, or do you reckon you've got that one covered?
Yeah, I think nebulas will go both ways. But Steve has probably got a bit better academic answer on that one. I just like taking pictures.
Not very academic. I kind of think they go the other way, as you say. They sort of coalesce into stars. So these sort of nebulae are where new stars form, and that's from coalescing of the gas and the dust through gravitational attraction. But I don't think all of it will get sort of sucked in. So some of it will disperse. Just some basic stats for those who are interested. The Eta Carina Nebula is about 10,000 light years away. And as we see it there, just to give you an idea of scale, the nebula is about 120 by 120 arc minutes. So it's actually a huge nebula. And of course, at the centre of it is the star that's most likely to go supernova, I think, is the
Homunculus.
Eta Carina itself, which is imminently going to go supernova. And by imminent, I think that means within the next 200,000 years.
That's pretty imminent.
It may have gone already. It may have gone. When it does go, it will be visible in daylight.
Okay, so now while we're just waiting for Noel to move to another object, I'm going to try and bring Darren back in. Let's see how this works. Darren, can you hear us? I don't think he can. So I think what I might have to move him to the back again. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties.
I'm feeling like the poor man's Darren at the moment.
We couldn't get our Deep Sky section director here either because he's got no internet at the moment. His modem blew up. So.
Yeah.
So what are we jumping to now, Noel?
Yeah, I'm moving up to the running chicken nebula. This is a little bit higher on the horizon, and hopefully I'll avoid some of the obstructions that I've just encountered with Carina. So I'm going to fire off a 20-second shot and have a look at that.
All right. So while you're doing that, we've got another question. Katrina wants to know, are nebulas visible in Victoria to the naked eye or telescope? What is the best time to view if so?
Well, if the Eta Carina Nebula is visible to the naked eye in a dark sky, so up at our dark sky site in central Victoria, you can see the Eta Carina Nebula to the naked eye. It looks as though it's kind of one of the brighter parts of the Milky Way as it arcs across the sky. And it's fairly close to Crux, to the Southern Cross. So you kind of move up from Crux and then through Eta Carina and then across the sky, following the Milky Way. So, yes, I think is the answer.
Question answered. Yes, Noel did say the running chicken nebula. And no, I'm not going to do a chicken noise. I did type it just before in response to Neil, but I'm not going to make a chicken noise. So what else have we got? While we wait for this to start stacking, see what other questions you've got. I saw one here. Here we go, from Steve Bodie. I want to upgrade from a DSLR to an for astrophotography. Would you recommend going for a monochrome camera with a filter wheel or a one-shot camera? Noel, this one I think is directed at you, and I think Neil will probably give an answer in the chat as well.
Absolutely. If you've got the time, patience, and no doubt the extra bit of cash, you'll really thank yourself for getting a monochrome camera. Once you start looking into how camera sensors work, you'll soon realize that once you have a color sensor, you're losing so much data. A monochrome, you're getting all of the data on that sensor, whereas a color sensor, it's essentially a monochrome sensor with a matrix filter on it that filters out parts of the color. So you'll have, I think it's roughly half of the sensor gets green, a quarter gets red, and a quarter gets blue. So you're missing so much information whenever you're imaging. Whereas if you go the route of having a monochrome sensor, you cycle through the filter wheels, you'll get 100% of that signal hitting that sensor. Plus, you get to play with the other filters like hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and you can go crazy then collecting wonderful data. You can image when it's full moon and collect filtered data like that. So that's why I'm suggesting look at having the monochrome. Yeah, it's going to be more work. You're going to have to collect more data. You'll spend more time processing. It's a bit more of a learning curve, but it's going to be worth it.
Beautiful. There we go. Surely there's some running chicken nebula jokes. There are, but I did say I wasn't going to make chicken noises. So, what have we got? Sarah is just here for the Uranus jokes. We must all be on our best behaviour with the Uranus jokes, Sarah. So how many stacks we got? We've got 4 stacks at the moment, have we, Noel?
Yeah.
What's happened there?
I brought
you're
up
scaring me there.
I brought up Stellarium just while I was getting some data and before I start stretching it, just to give people an idea of where this object is in the sky. So this is actually Stellarium free software. It's absolutely brilliant. I've inserted an overlay of my backyard in here, so I know when things are going to hit the neighbour's roof. But I'm going to look down south here. There's the Southern Cross and the pointers. Now we were just looking here at the Carina Nebula, and now we've moved up here to the running chicken. So that'll give you an idea of where we're at in the sky. The view from Bendigo is not going to be a world different from the view from Melbourne in regards to the position of things. Certainly the light, it's going to be a bit of a different experience, but yeah, we're quite low in the south there. So
oh, what happened there? Oh no, we're back again.
Yeah. Now we can.
So just quickly on Carina, while you're doing this, I've just got some information from Darren, who's just he's feeding it to me via Messenger so that I can pass it on to you. Carina Nebula is visible to the naked eye in binoculars, and even more spectacular in a small and large telescope. And I can vouch for that. It's a beautiful object in an 8-inch Dobsonian. So what are we up to? 7 stacked images on the Running Chicken Nebula. Steve, do you have any information on the Running Chicken Nebula?
Let's have a quick look here. This object is actually pretty close to us. It's only 390 light years away. So pretty close. Not visible to the naked eye. It's well, close. No, it wouldn't be. It's magnitude 4.5. But remember, that's magnitude plus 4.5 across quite a wide area, so it definitely wouldn't be visible to the naked eye.
There we go. So it's more of a it's a favourite of the astrophotographers. I know that much.
Yeah. Less so probably for the visual observers than the astrophotographers, I think.
Okay, so we've got someone asking this. Can you remind me where the 5 of diamonds is? You're giggling. You're giggling, Steve. Why are you giggling?
One of Perry's favourites, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. Whoop, that's the wrong comment. Sorry. Someone came for the Pisces and stayed for the hell of it. So can you remind me where the 5 of diamonds is? There we go.
It's in the south.
It's in the south. There we go. We've had it answered. It's at the foot. It's near Theta Carina. It's the foot. 5 diamonds is at the foot of the diamond cross near the star Theta Carina, not far from the Eta Carina Nebula. So we've got 10 stacked images on the Running Chicken Nebula at the moment. So, Andy is back. While you're stacking this, Andy's back with his HA image of the Eta Carina. So let's just chuck that on there, shall we? So that is a HA image. So Andy, I'm just going to bring you back into the stream, and you can tell us a little bit about this image. He's on mute. I'll have to unmute you, Andy.
Yep, that's actually Running Chicken. 2 seconds.
Oh,
2 seconds. I I had it there, but it's been there for 5 minutes.
All right. So while we wait for that, we'll just jump back. Let me know when you've got it, or you've got it coming up over here, Andy. Ah, there we go.
Back on.
Beautiful.
I'll just rotate it.
Yep. Can we zoom in a bit on that? Is that possible?
Yep, I just got to wait for it to rotate. Should just. For some reason it's not rotating.
And while Andy's trying to work on that one, Steve, Gunnar Gronvall, the 5 of diamonds was minted by me many years ago.
Hi, Gunnar.
There you go.
Hey, Gunnar, we will get back to doing some astronomy for the people eventually.
Here we go. So that's Carina in hydrogen alpha, and that's taken with a Canon DSLR. It's an old 450D, so it's probably 12 to 13-year-old, but it's been modded. It's had its IR filter taken off, and then I've put a hydrogen alpha filter in front of that, and that was taken during a full moon.
So I'm going to jump back to Noel's camera. Here we go. Stacked images there. So how we've got 19 stacked images at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Not too sure how well this one will improve. I'm thinking that we might be getting close to good enough for now, and be able to move on to something a little more pretty and shiny.
Great. So, Steve, did you talk about how far away from us Running Chicken is?
It's very close, yeah. It's only 390 light years away. The interesting thing with the Running Chicken Nebula is that it contains a number. We were talking about star formation. You know how the gas and dust sort of coalesces into stars eventually. There are within the Running Chicken Nebula, and I think we could see them better in the processed image that Andy had. Are things called Bock globules, which are dark globules, and these are where the gas and the cloud and the dust has started to coalesce and will eventually form into stars. Apparently, they're now known as Thackeray's globules, not nobules. So I think that sort of answers back a little bit to the question about nebulae dispersing or coalescing.
It does, yes.
The most famous nebula that has those obvious star-forming areas is the Eagle Nebula, which has the Pillars of Creation, which is the famous several Bock globules. The Eagle Nebula has the Pillars of Creation in it, which are star-forming areas. That was the famous picture taken by Hubble.
You guys just want me to do the chicken noise, I know. So Noel, did you want to try and move to? Do you want to try and move to a galaxy? We've got a galaxy. We've got a galaxy on our list, don't we? We've got a couple of galaxies.
Yeah, I've got them a little bit later on because they're around towards the east. So I've got a couple more things in the southwest I want to cover off before we start looking around. And then things will start to get interesting. I'm going to do a couple of clusters, and then we'll get onto a nebula that looks pretty sweet. So much better than this running chickens turning up, that's for sure. So I'll take a mosey on around to the next one. This will be our section director's favourite object.
Don't worry. Oh, there we go. So Michael is wanting to know if we're going to go and see some planetary nebulas. And Michael, we are. There are some planetary nebulas on the list. So bear with us and we will get to them. While you're doing that, Adette is asking, if I was looking through my telescope, how dull would the colours appear?
That's easy. You wouldn't see any colour.
There you go. You wouldn't. How big would the telescope need to be for you to see some colour in a nebula?
Well, Mark, do you want to talk about the 40-inch telescope?
Well, it's not so much a new toy anymore. Yeah, our 40-inch telescope, I have been lucky enough to look at Orion Nebula through that and pick up some pink hues in the 40-inch looking at Orion Nebula, and green hues, and the same with Tarantula Nebula. Been able to see some green hues in that. So yes, you can pick up hints of colours, but your telescope's got to be pretty big. And when I say the 40-inch telescope, essentially that's a 1 meter diameter mirror that we're talking about. So the telescope itself is very, very tall. Be what, Steve? It'd be about 4 meters tall.
It's tall.
Yeah,
There's a
4 meters tall.
On the website of with the Deep Sky section director Paul Gardner stood on the ladder looking through.
My favourite photo. Love that photo.
I think it's fair to say that colour is the preserve of astrophotography.
It is. It is. That photo is a distortion, though, because Paul is a dwarf. Okay, so we've got our Deep Sky section director's favourite object, the jewel box cluster. What can you tell us about the jewel box, Steve?
Oh, hold on. Give me a chance. Give me a chance. Well, I
can tell you that
this is one of our favourite objects for when we go out to schools, because it's visible in pretty light polluted sky. And the first thing we do with the kids is we say, what can you see? What's the asterism that you can see? And it's actually a capital A, and in this view it's upside down. The other thing that's nice about the jewel box is that, and this is a difference between looking at nebulae and looking at stars, is that with stars you definitely will see colour in them through a telescope. So the jewel box is called the jewel box because it has lots of stars that look like little jewels. And for the kids in particular who've got really good eyesight, they can perhaps see greenish coloured stars, bluish coloured stars. I can definitely see a very orange coloured star on the, you see how it's the A upside down. So the very bright star that's on the crossbar across the middle of the capital A is actually very clearly through a smallish telescope, through an 8 or a 10-inch telescope, you can very easily see that it's an orange colour. And we call that an asterism. When
you can clearly see the A there upside down.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Great image, Noel. So moving back out. So yeah, you can still see the A there quite well as well.
So just to give you the stats on it, it's about 6,500 light years away, 6.4
And,
thousand light years
Darren
away.
is letting me know that it was discovered in 1751 as a nebula due to the telescope quality. And it's a good binocular object for beginners. And you got to look for the lovely red-coloured star in there. And there is a lovely red-coloured star buried in amongst all those lovely colours.
In a dark sky, you would see about 100 stars in that cluster. So it's an open cluster. So there are stars that are they're not just optically aligned; they're actually gravitationally aligned. So they all sit in the same area of space. Eventually, though, over time, they will start to disperse further and further apart.
Okay, so it looks like Noel is moving us to Messier 6. So do you want to explain to people what Messier objects are?
Was that for Noel or for me?
That was for you. That was for you. Noel's just the cameraman tonight.
Thank you. Perhaps Darren's on, I don't know, but no, but Messier objects are fairly easy. So Charles Messier was a comet hunter back in the 18th century up in Paris, in France, and he produced a catalogue of well, initially I think it was 100 objects, and then eventually it became 110 objects that were definitely not comets. So it's interesting that he produced a catalogue of things not to look at, that these days we treat as things that you really, really should look at. And so the Messier list is these 110 objects that are some of the best objects in the sky to look at, deep sky objects. Now, that you have to remember that Charles was looking at these objects from Paris, so in the northern hemisphere. So there tends to be more of them that are visible from the northern hemisphere than from here. And in fact, down in the southern hemisphere, the furthest south object is in Scorpius. I think it's the Ptolemy cluster.
Ptolemy,
so which in our sky appears sort of pretty around the middle of the sky, but for him in the northern hemisphere it would have been very low to the horizon, to the southern horizon for him.
So I just want to give a shout out to Barry Cleland, who is he's watching. I know he's watching because he's posting comments on YouTube. So hello, Barry. Barry is one of our oldest ASV members, a former president and our current librarian.
Hello, Barry. So we have a thing called in the ASV called the Messier 100, which is for those of you who were on the Lunar observing call earlier on. It's a bit like the Lunar 100. So it's the Messier 100 is the 100 of the 110 Messier objects that we can actually see from Melbourne. Well, from Victoria. And a couple of the objects are quite challenging. You have to go close to the New South Wales border to actually see them on the horizon to the north. But it's a good challenge. I'm currently, myself and another ASV member called Linda, we're buddying up to do the Messier 100. We've done about 60 or 70 of them so far, which takes about if you work really hard at it, you can do it in 12 months as you go around the sort of cycle of seeing the different constellations. But it's a great challenge if you're an ASV member. definitely worth doing.
Wonderful, thank you. So we have a question here. Kane would like to know, why is the image in his telescope upside down?
Perhaps he should stop standing on his head. Sorry. Sorry, Kane.
Nice. Kane, he didn't mean that.
Did he get a northern hemisphere telescope? Is that the problem?
Sorry, Kane, we're making fun. It's to do with the way that the light path in the telescope gets transitioned around as it hits the mirror. So if you're using a reflector, then it gets transitioned around sort of upside down by the mirror as the light rays kind of hit and bounce back towards the eyepiece. And then it can also go sort of back to front, as it were, as well as upside down. And it depends on the type of telescope that you're using. So I think a reflector, a Dobsonian telescope, is upside down and back to front. But some of the other scopes don't do that. I don't know if anyone else on the team wants to comment on that.
Noel, anything to add?
Well, I mean, Newtonian reflectors, you get the issue of a mirror involved. That's why it flips the image around. But yeah, I was just trying to remember some diagrams of the way that sort of light comes into a point, but then as I guess it gets switched around as it goes through the objective on the lens. So yeah, a tree ends up being upside down. That's just the way that the path of light through the lens will do that. And I do remember learning in biology that our eyes actually see everything upside down, but our brains are wired to flip it. And that if we were hung upside down for long enough, theory is that which our brains would switch it back around again. That's what my biology teacher in high school tried to tell me anyway. I don't know if it was a threat or...
It might have been.
Yeah. So we've got the butterfly cluster on screen there at the moment.
Yes, so the butterfly cluster, that's Messier 6.
So,
Do you want to... Have you got a Noel? Have you got a pointer that you can use there? Perhaps you could point out the wings of the butterfly and the body.
So it's we do know it's 1,600 light years away. Constellation in Scorpius. It's a 94.2 million year old cluster. Very good in small telescopes. So
we've got I believe that's the antennae there and the wings out through here.
Yeah.
Am I seeing that right? Yeah.
Yep. This is while you're pointing that out. This is another object that is pretty good from the suburbs. You can see it in a fairly light polluted sky. It's another of the objects that we like to show people when we're doing astronomy for the people sort of school visits.
it is a very nice object to look at.
I'm looking forward to the next one. So I'm going to quickly switch cameras. I can do some magic here.
Noel, we've got some feedback that it's very hard to hear you.
Okay.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you for letting us know.
I'll try and speak louder. I don't know if I can adjust my microphone volume. Okay.
So while he's doing that, where is it in Scorpius, Steve? This is Messier 6.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Just off to the side. Let me just sort of give a better description of. Again, it's up at our dark site. It's visible to the naked eye. It's not as bright as Ptolemy's cluster, which is M7, which you can see just above it there. But you can see over to the left of M6 is the tail of Scorpius running through. Oh, wait.
He's moving to the next object. So.
Oh, sorry. So we can't. I don't know if you got to see that there with. So it's just off well, on the map view there, off to just to the right of the tail of Scorpius, and is in a dark sky. If you can see M7, which is Ptolemy's cluster, then it's kind of just below that. We're in a sort of my favorite area of the sky there. There's a wonderful run of open clusters and nebulae that run through the Milky Way from Scorpius along the base of Sagittarius. And anyone that was an ASV member, I did a bit of a presentation recently on all of the Messier objects that sit around this area, of which there's quite a few. There's 14 or 15.
Beautiful. So have you got, you're starting to stack your next image there, Noel, are you?
Yeah, I've just toggled cameras. So I'm switching over to my Newtonian now and using, I've just switched to a different camera. So I've reset my mount alignment model and am now going to plate solve and hopefully start stacking.
Beautiful. So what are we looking at? What's our next object?
It's M20. I'm going to clear this, and it's the Trifid.
Oh, the Strongman Nebula.
I should get my notes out here from the presentation that I did, because obviously we talked. M20 was one of the objects that we talked about in Sagittarius.
It's a beautiful object, absolutely stunning. In fact, Blake, I should say Astro Blake, has been, the last few clear nights we've had, he's been out collecting data on Trifid Nebula and processing and stacking and processing and stacking with the Trifid Nebula. It's his current object. It is starting to get lower in the sky, obviously, so it doesn't get too much time on it. He's jumped on it late in the season, but he's been enjoying it. So, Steve, do you have any stats on the Trifid Nebula you can share with us?
Well, according to Sky Safari, it's 5.2 thousand light years away, so reasonably close. It's 29 by 27 arc minutes. It's just outside of being visible to the naked eye. It's magnitude 6.3. One of the things that we were talking about on the session when we looked at the Messier objects in Sagittarius was, and I think it was Neil Creek actually that brought this up, was how many of the dark arms you can see. And the Trifid, it's really, if you think that's sort of a 3 thing, but there are actually 4 dark arms which may or may not be visible to in a telescope view, are definitely visible in an astrophotography view. And we'll see when Noel brings this one up, whether we can see 4 dark divisions, if you like, across the nebula.
So, yeah, so it's what we do know is Darren has let me know that it is a gaseous blob in binoculars with some dark lanes visible, and it is definitely a fantastic object for all scopes. But unfortunately, it's another one that's not visible in our lovely polluted Melburnian skies. I've tried a couple of times recently to see if I can get it in the scope, and it's just too much light pollution. So Noel is, what are we doing at the moment here, Noel?
I'm just having to tweak the focus. When I
Well,
swapped
while you
over,
do that, I'm going to jump to, Andy's got it open in Stellarium just so we can have a bit of a peek at it. So if you want to zoom back in there, Andy, for us. So Andy's just, so this is the object we're currently moving to. So obviously this is not a live version, but Noel's just getting his equipment going so that he can get stuck into stacking some images for us live. And while we're looking at this, we have a question from Carissa. Which Skywatch app do you guys recommend for finding objects? Personally, I use Sky Safari on my phone and Stellarium on the computer. Both are free apps.
I would concur with that as well. That's what I use as well. So on the phone, or preferably on an iPad because you've got more real estate, Sky Safari is supreme in my view. I just think it's such a solid, good app. For an astronomer, the best version to go with is Sky Safari Plus, which is the middle kind of version. You pay a little bit of money. I think it's sort of just under $20. On the PC, Stellarium is great as a free app. It's just wonderful for nothing.
Neil's just letting us know it's not free on the phone, which is true, it's not. But on your computer, when you're using your computer, Stellarium is a wonderful program. And yes, I use Stellarium on my computer and I use Sky Safari on my phone. There we go.
So the nice thing as well with these apps is that you can hook them up to a lot of go-to telescopes as well. So I can hook up Sky Safari to my go-to 12-inch Dobsonian. And I think we have the link set up on the 40 and the 25 to hook up with Sky.
Yes, we do. Yep. So the star cluster, can we zoom back in there, Andy? So the star cluster you can see in there is NGC 6530. So it's sort of sitting in there inside. There it is. Yep. Beautiful. So how are we going there, Noel? I nearly did it again. We got some stacked images we can put up yet?
I've almost got focus, so another couple of minutes and I'll have some images going.
You can probably see in that image that there are 4 dark lanes in the main body of the Trifid rather than 3.
Yeah, there are 4. Yep. So does anybody else have any other questions they'd like to ask? Just see if we can get some more questions. I think we might have some people from America joining us shortly by the looks of it.
Wow.
I think they're just starting to wake up over there.
Well, we had, was it Sergio from Brazil?
We did. We had Sergio from Brazil earlier.
To catch the earlier presentations.
Okay, so how are we going there, Noel?
Yeah, that mistake mark's going to cost you another minute.
Well, while you're doing that, Hayden Andrew wants to know, how does he make his stars smaller? And it's a processing question.
Okay. Now, it's a controversial one. I'll create a starless image, and that's where the controversy comes in that there'll be some people will not speak to you again if you start making starless images in your processing, but it's easy to do. It's free software called StarNet. Makes beautifully artistic images of nebula without stars. But I take that and then I merge them back with the original. So I've got a starless version and one with stars. And the way that you can combine them back together is you can make those stars in the starred version a little less significant than they are. that's my take on it, because I don't want to spend a fortune just yet on software like that starts with a P and ends in X and site. That'll do it all nicely for you. So I play around with manual processes to.
Very subtle, very, very subtle.
Yeah, good things cost money. I get that, and it's a wonderful bit of software, but it's a lot of money.
There you go. So we have another one here. How much would a reasonable entry-level telescope cost me? So we were discussing this last night as part of our telescope purchasing stream. It depends, Deb. Generally, from a visual point of view, we're talking 8-inch Dobsonians, and you're sort of looking sort of $600 to $700 roughly, thereabouts, to get an 8-inch Dobsonian. That's what we're recommending visually. If you're talking from an astrophotography point of view, Noel, do you have any advice from an astro from entry level?
Yeah, the scope that I'm using tonight would probably be considered in some circles a entry level scope, in that there's two scopes that you'd come across a lot being entry level in astrophotography. Is that you'd get a small Newtonian style reflector like I've got, and the other type is a small refractor. A refractor is much like a camera lens. It's small and solid, but long and thin. Now, the common refractor that's popular it's called an ED80, and that refers to 80 mil as the aperture or the diameter of the the big end. ED refers to the type of glass that it's made from. It's low distortion. That's where you would start on a refractor. You'd spend under $1,000 on one of those. A Newtonian, though, I think my Newtonian was only around $400 odd. The scope itself is fairly cheap to be manufactured. That's why they're really popular. You get a lot of bang for your buck. That all sounds very good. The problem is though, that you want to pour all the money you can into your mount, because the better mount that you have to be able to accurately and very, I guess, smoothly, that's not a good word, but it's what I'm doing now, move around to follow the night sky, counteract the Earth's rotation. That mount you want to be machined wonderfully, really robust and really reliable. That's going to cost you money. You'd easily spend a couple of $1,000s on one of those. You don't have to spend that sort of money on one of those. You want it to start, you could start small, but just bear in mind that that will be your limitation moving forward. So your mount will determine what sort of gear you can put on it in regards to weight. A $2,000 mount would probably hold around 10, 12 kilos of gear. If you wanted to get quite a big scope and go a bit serious with it all, you'd probably have to double or triple that money on that mount to take that extra weight that the big gear does. If that sort of stuff is just ridiculous kind of expense for your hobbies, then that's fine. You can get small amount, and you just got to keep working small. You can create beautiful images, though. There'll be other people that are watching here in the comments tonight that do stunning images with consumer cameras, with consumer camera lenses on little star tracking mounts. It's just they know how to process the images, and they take the patience to do that properly, and they go to the right locations to take those images. So don't be scared of people. It's not an equipment game. It's really about the amount of time you can put into it, the amount of time you can put into learning about how to process things. It's not just an ego game where it's who's got the biggest and most expensive toys.
So we've got one for you here, Steve, if you want to jump in here. What are the main gases of the Trifid Nebula making up the colours? Throwing you a curveball there. Very good question.
That's a good one. So there's an emission nebula, which is the red stuff, and there's a reflection nebula, which is the blue stuff. So the gases So the reflection nebula is really just reflected light from other dust and gas. As I understand it, the red is ionized gas, and is it hydrogen or is it oxygen? You'll have to help me.
Throw that one at me again. Sorry.
So is the red gas? Is the
hydrogen.
red? I can't remember whether it's hydrogen. And it's ionized, so it's actually kind of emitting its own light, whereas the blue nebula is just dust and gas that's reflecting light from other parts of the nebula.
There we go. We've got Adrian Pump chiming in. It's hydrogen and oxygen. There you go.
I knew it was one or the other.
So here's a good one for you, Noel. Is there anything I can do to reduce light pollution as I live close to the city? I've thrown that one at Noel. There's some filters you can get, isn't there?
Yeah, monochrome camera and shoot with filters will help a lot. There's some great images that come out of the city members that shoot in their backyard. And also you could just pick your targets. You might find that planetary imaging is going to be a good way to go. If you want to sort of do some images, planets, you take wonderful photos of those from your urban backyard. If you really want to chase nebula and you want to do that with a one-shot color camera, it's going to be tough. But other than that, you can put filters on those. But yeah, you'd be looking at ideally going with a narrowband camera and shooting with filters.
There you go.
For visual observing, there's not a huge amount you can do. So because really you sort of process with astrophotography, you can kind of process the light pollution out. There's not much you can do with visual observing.
No. So I know this one's been answered, but some people may not have seen this one. So if COVID clears, how often do you hold star parties, and when would the next star party be this time next year? So we hold 2 public star parties a year. We have the Messier star party and the Christmas star party. But obviously this year, I don't think we'll be having a Christmas star party, just the way restrictions are at the moment and where they're likely to be. And I'm not sure when we'll be able to have a decent sized star party next to the LMDSS. But as I think Neil mentioned earlier as well, if you become a member of the ASV, when the site does reopen, and it's closed at the moment, but when it does reopen, as a member, you have access to the site 24/7, 365 days a year. So it's probably the best thing you can do is become a member, and then you've got access to the beautiful dark skies, accommodation on site, showers, facilities on site, beautiful brand new toilet facilities, cooking facilities, everything you need is up there.
I think it's fair to say that we have a star party there once a month.
Well, we kind of do, yes. Yeah.
So
a deep sky section, deep sky section.
Deep sky. And it's become, I've been a member since 2007, and we used to get probably, 10 or 12 people going to the deep sky meetings are held at the weekend that's closest to the new moon weekend. So when there's no moon up in the sky, when there's no light pollution, if you like. Mark, it's probably, Noel, it's probably more like 40 or 50 people now, isn't it? At the deep sky.
Yeah, we'd get about that many now up there for deep sky. So Noel, are you ready to rock with an image there, or?
Yeah, I've got an image building up now that's worth sharing.
Okay, we'll bring that up. Oh, look at that. We'll make that full screen now.
And the nice thing is we can clearly see those 4 lines rather than 3.
You can indeed see the 4 lines.
You can also see the red emission nebula and the blue reflection nebula as well.
So what have we got? Have you got some information you can share about Triffid while we're looking at this image stack?
I think we've probably covered most of it.
I think we might well have covered most of it. Neil's come late to the party.
5.2 thousand light years away, so 5,200 light years. It's 29 by 27 arc minutes, so it will fill the field in a moderate eyepiece in visual terms. It's a good object.
It's a very good object. Here we go. Make more memories. When open, how many would you get at a deep sky site in the people at night, not a star party waiting for restrictions to ease? Yep, we just answered that one, didn't we? So it's sort of 40 people who usually come along to our deep sky events.
The nice thing as well is that for particularly new members, it's a great opportunity to come along and have a look through other people's scopes. Also look through the ASV scopes as well. We would suggest that people kind of do that if they're a member before they actually buy a telescope and get an idea of what you can see. We're all a very friendly bunch, and after me looking through a telescope, the next thing I most enjoy is somebody else looking through the telescope.
Yeah, it is fun. That's definitely for sure. So how are we going there, Noel? You ready to move to our next object?
Well, it's not far away, and it shouldn't take me anywhere as long. Famous last words. Now that I've got focus, this should be great. Great.
It's probably fine. Another little fact about M20 is that it's supposed to be among the youngest of emission nebulae.
It's about 4,000 years old, 4,000 years old or something?
It's a baby, so it's 300,000 years old.
Oh, 300,000. I was way off. 4,000 years. Sorry.
Typically, anything that you think is about, you always add 3 noughts at the end of anything.
I'll blame Darren for some incorrect information there. We'll blame you, Darren. There we go.
Well, it could be. It could be right. I mean, obviously, I'm using Sky Safari, and some of these facts are not really sort of 100% facts. A lot of the distances and the ages of things are estimates, I think we'll say.
So what have we got here, Noel?
This is M8.
Oh, Lagoon. It's the May Nebula. Oh, I've been hanging all week to say that. So this is the Aussie Nebula, as I call it, the May Nebula.
May.
Or the May. So the Messier 8. Noel, there's a question for you. Would you know whether there is a sharp cap equivalent for Mac users?
I did come across one for Linux. If someone wanted to purchase me a new Mac, that'd be great, and I'll certainly do some research. But there would be. It
would be. So just hold tight. I'm sure Noel will come up with an answer, and he'll pop it in a chat somewhere along the lines when he finds one. I know what you're like, Noel. You're a quick worker. You'll discover something that we can use in Mac, because some of us are Mac users. So now M8, Messier 8. What have we got on that one, Steve?
So this is one of 2 star-forming regions that we can see that are visible to the naked eye in a reasonably dark sky. So the other one, the other naked eye visible star-forming area of it, well, for those that know something about it, is the Orion Nebula, but this is the other one. So it's a big object. I know when I'm looking, this fills the eyepiece. It's about 1.5 degrees by nearly 1 degree. So it's 90 by 40 arc minutes. It's a big object. It's called a lagoon nebula because there are sort of dark areas that sort of divide the lagoons, plural. There's probably something else I can say about those coloured areas, but I'll need to just check up again on those.
There we go. So, yeah, so it's between 4 to 6,000 light years away from Earth.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got this one should be the running chicken nebula as well, because it's got a lot of Bok globules in it. So you can see this in binoculars, and it was discovered in 1654 by Giovanni Hodierna. And within the nebula is the open cluster of NGC 6530 as well. Oh, here's a very good question. Do you need to train your eyes to look through a telescope and see things clearly?
Yes. I always tell people when we're looking when we do the astronomy for the people, the more you look, the more you see. And it doesn't happen the first time that you look through. It can take sort of years almost to really learn. I mean, I found that as my eyes are getting weaker, I'm 63 now, but that's sort of balanced by the fact that I kind of know what I'm looking for a bit more. But certainly you need to keep looking and looking and looking. And where that's most obvious, I find, is with globular clusters. So, with something like 47 Tucana and Omega, which I think we've got in the list, the more you keep looking, the more stars you will see, particularly towards the center, as your eyes get sort of accustomed to what you're seeing. Does that kind of answer it?
Yep, that's a good answer, actually. So, yeah, trained eye is a good eye.
Can you see with this object that there's an open star cluster down to the bottom there?
Yeah, I was just saying that before. It's NGC 6530.
Yeah. The bright star to the top that's driving that red area is called 9 Sagittarii.
Wonderful. That's something I didn't know. There you go. I've learned something now about the Mate Nebula. Yes, Adrian, you're correct. Allow time for your eyes to adapt to the dark. That's for sure. That's definitely something that everybody should do when they're doing any form of astronomy, visual astronomy.
We have a pretty strict policy up at the dark site that you have no white lights. It's
white lights.
So red light is nowhere near as bad. So we use red torches and red screens on our mobile devices these days as well. But it typically can take about 20 minutes or so for your eyes to get fully dark adapted.
So we had someone earlier talking about, commenting about trying to make their screen red, and one of the ASV volunteers has responded to it. But yeah, if it's an iPhone, you can do that. There are settings under the accessibility mode section of your iPhone. Exactly how you do that, I cannot recall. Steve actually did it for me a few years back, and I've never looked back since. It's great being able to just triple click the bottom of my phone and it goes red.
Yes, it's a great little feature that. So the things like Stellarium and Sky Safari will have red mode, but the problem is that when your phone flicks to another app or the home screen or whatever, you then go, oh, it's all bright white. So
you go a bit blind.
It's using I can't remember which section it's in now, but
it's accessibility mode.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. It's within the accessibility section, and you have to kind of keep searching for it. You have to change it to the sort of red side of the spectrum. And then it's a great feature, though, as we know.
So Neil's asking a question. Why is it that red light specifically does not cause your eyes to lose our dark adaptation? I know he knows the answer to that, but I know he's asked it because it's a very good question. And I think we put Steve on the spot there.
I might get Neil to answer that over the.
There you go, Neil. You can answer your own question because I know you know the answer to that.
I know about rods and cones in your eye. And I suspect that the rods are more susceptible to the sort of whiter light end of the spectrum. Then they're more sensitive to it. Whereas, because so shall I just explain a little bit more? So
Yeah,
around the sort of the perimeter of the retina is an area called rods, which we use to give us nighttime vision. But we don't see very much colour through the rods. It's mainly just black and white. The cones are towards the centre of the retina, and it's the cones that are sensitive that we use to see colours. So in at the night, what we actually do is and this sort of 20-minute thing is it's making the rods in our eyes as sort of light sensitive as possible. And it sort of leads, sorry, this is a very long answer, but it's actually very useful for those who are interested in doing visual astronomy. When we're looking at very faint objects, so very distant galaxies and things like that, we use a thing called averted vision to see those.
That's Steve.
Yeah. Averted vision is
Steve,
where, yeah.
Sorry. I was just going to say, Paul has just noted in there, he said, Steve, can you also explain averted vision? So you've rolled right into it.
Yeah. So averted vision is where when you're looking at a very faint, or you can look into the eyepiece and see nothing when you look straight in. But if you actually look at it through the side of your eye, so you don't look straight at it, so sort of like, if that makes sense, sort of like that, if people can see me, what I'm doing.
Yeah, you're on the screen. I can make you big if you want.
When you use averted vision to look at a faint object, you're actually looking at it with the rods in your eyes rather than the cones. And because they're more sensitive to light, you can actually see it. What also helps to see these very faint objects visually is sometimes just to jiggle the telescope with your fingertip, and a little bit of movement will actually bring out some of the fainter objects. So we're talking about galaxies that are perhaps magnitude 12 or so, and through a normal kind of a 10-inch scope, let's say, or a 12-inch scope, by jiggling the scope and using averted vision, you actually get to see these very faint objects, and it's very rewarding when that happens. It's it's the nicest thing.
It is, yeah. It's quite interesting, isn't it? How you can look at an eyepiece and you can sit there looking straight on and you go, I can't see that. And the moment you just go like that, you go, oh, that's what you're looking at. It's very impressive. So, Noel, what are you looking at here at the moment? I nearly called you Neil again. What have we got on the screen? This is the planetary.
Yeah, this is finally, we've got a planetary. So hopefully that guest is still with us. We're in the Saturn Nebula.
Oh,
NGC 7009.
There we go. So Saturn Nebula. Oh, I should have had that. Like, this is, I love planetary nebula. They're beautiful things. So it's NGC 7009, and it's in the constellation of Aquarius, and tends to appear as a greenish yellowish hue, but it looks very blue in your screen at the moment.
There we go. It should be fixed up now. I had to recalibrate star colors.
Ah, was that the excuse? Was it? Yeah.
Technical experimentation. Pressing this button. I had to press this button, and now we're good.
we don't like to promote irresponsible drinking, but Neil has just created a drinking game. ASV drinking game. Whenever I make a mistake, everyone must take a swig. There you go. That's the new game for the rest of the night. This thing's going to go global, I tell you now.
It's fairly easy to see why it's called the Saturn Nebula, isn't it?
Yeah, it does look a lot like Saturn, doesn't it? It's so it's somewhere between 2,000 to 4,000 light years away, with an apparent magnitude of about 8. So,
Mark, you better explain what a planetary nebula is if we've not already done so.
Oh, we haven't done what a planetary nebula is, have we? Oh. So it's a type of emission nebula consisting of an expanding glowing shell of ionized gas that's been ejected from a red giant star late in its life. They call them planetary nebulas because sometimes they look like planets, like the ghost of Jupiter apparently looks a bit like Jupiter. But I tell you what, I've looked at the ghost of Jupiter that many times and I see no resemblance to Jupiter in that one. This one I do. This one looks like Saturn a little bit, but Ghost of Jupiter looks nothing like Jupiter. So the term originates from a planet-like round shape of these nebulae observed by astronomers through early telescopes. So I can understand why they might have thought. Sorry, I'm reading the comments there. I understand why they might have thought they were planets back in the old days, looking through the equipment they were looking through, but having the luxury of the ASV's 25-inch telescope and 40-inch telescope, I can't see how a Ghost of Jupiter looks anything like Jupiter myself. And so yes, Adrian, I do make for eventful nights. So I hope you've got some drinks because I'm going to keep confusing Neil and Noel just on purpose now, just to make it fun for you guys.
So this could be what happens to the sun, because the Saturn Nebula was originally a low mass star, and has transformed into a white dwarf, which is probably what will happen to the sun as well. And it's blown off all these sort of shell layers of gas.
Yes, it will, yes.
What's absolutely certain, though, is that we won't be around. We as humans won't be around when that happens. No,
we won't. We won't. We'd want to be long gone by then, hey? We'd want to be well and truly.
I think on the solar session with Dr. Ross this afternoon, he said, and I thought this was fairly optimistic. Somebody asked the question about how, when would it get too hot, the sun, for life on Earth?
Yes, someone did.
He said 2 billion, which let's go with that, 2 billion, and of which that's sort of halfway towards the sun starting to come to the end of its life in 5 billion years.
Yes. So Noel, while you're doing that, Jen has jumped in the back end. She's got some clear skies in Swan Hill, and she's done a single image of our good mate Nebula that we just might pop up while you're stacking these. So we'll just pop that one up. So this is a single click image from Jen. I'll bring Jen into the stream. So Jen, do you want to explain what you've got equipment-wise up there in Swan Hill in your cozy little cabin, and explain exactly what you've taken here image-wise?
Yeah, it's just a 2-minute shot using a ASI 1600 mono camera with a Skywatcher ED 120.
So this is, and what so monochrome cameras, this is just obviously black and white at the moment. You'll take a lot more of these images and then stack them and process them from here.
That's correct.
Yeah. So this is our good mate M8, Messier 8 Lagoon Nebula in monochrome. So I might jump back to Noel's one over here. There you go. No one has to take a drink because I called him Noel. So what have we got here? Is this 47 tuck?
No, this
No.
is M2.
Oh, you fooled me now.
That's it.
Yeah.
M2 tighter. So that's another drink.
M2. That is another drink. Every time I get something wrong, everyone has to drink. That's the new rule. So the glob cluster in Aquarius, discovered in 1746 by a French astronomer. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name because I know I will get it wrong. Charles Messier did rediscover it in 1760, and he thought it was a comet. Oh, sorry, no, he thought it was a nebula. Sorry, a nebula. And in 1783, William Herschel resolved that it was actually a star cluster. So under extremely good conditions, it is just visible with the naked eye, but it is a great binocular object and small telescope object.
Jean-Dominique Maraldi.
I'm glad that you pronounced that one, Steve, because I would have gotten it wrong. So what have you got stat-wise on this one?
Well, probably the same as you. It's actually one of the perhaps slightly more distant globular clusters. It's 38,000 light years away and sits, I'm just looking at the galaxy view in Sky Safari. It sits below, quite a way below the central core of the Milky Way galaxy in what's called the halo. Which is where most of the globular clusters sit, but it's quite a long way away. Not the furthest, but it's further than a lot. So,
Darren is letting me know that it is 174 light years across in size. So now, let's go back to
as with most globular clusters, it's very ancient. So
they are all very old, aren't they?
13 billion years. So not long after the Big Bang, really.
Not very old. Not very old at all. It was what, 21 yesterday. So, Noel, have we got any galaxies that we might be able to move across to?
Yeah. Yep. How about we knock off a few at once?
Yeah, why not? Why not? So let's. What are you going to move to first?
Well, I was going to go to NGC 7582, but it's got a few friends around it.
What friend? Oh, okay. This is one of my favorites.
But I'm just going to play with focus a little bit on this.
While you do that, Steve, we have a question from Carissa asking, do we know what makes a globular cluster?
Well, it's an interesting one, this. So they're obviously gravitationally attracted to one another, but the current theory is that these objects could actually be like mini galaxies, and that I think they're pretty certain that Omega Centaurus, which is the sort of the biggest of the globular clusters, actually has a black hole in the middle of it, which is, if anything's going to drag things in gravitationally, a black hole is pretty damn good at doing it. So perhaps it's to do with black holes, but certainly it's gravity that brings them all together. Most of the stars are very old, so there's no new stars being formed in these areas. They're all ancient. They're even more ancient than me.
You're not that ancient. I heard you turn 30 the other day.
30 light years, perhaps. I don't know whether does that answer the question.
I think that was a pretty good answer.
What's interesting as well is that these globular clusters have a huge number of stars in them. So, Omega Centauri has about 5 million stars in. I was trying to look up whether, I wasn't sure how many stars there were in M2, but if it's a reasonable size globular cluster, it's going to have something probably over 100,000 stars in there.
All right, so Andy's just while Noel is stacking. I've got Jen moving to a Galaxy as well. If she can, she's going to try and get something going. Andy is showing us on Stellarium what Noel is moving to, and it is the Gruz Quartet.
Nice.
There are 4 of them, not 3, 4 of them. So there we go. If you zoom back, if you just drop out just a touch there, Andy, you can see one in the top right-hand side there, the 4th one.
That face-on barred spiral.
And yes, beautiful one too. Now these are visible in up in the dark sky sites in most telescopes, actually. That's for sure. So I know I've seen this very faintly and small in an 8-inch Dobsonian before. That's for sure. Haha. Hayden, Andrew, how do I join this and share images? Is in join the stream that we're doing or join the ASV? That is the question. To join the ASV, you can go to www.asv.org.au/join. But the live stream tonight is purely and simply a team of us putting on a live stream for the general public, really. But if you'd like to be involved in future live streams, just by all means, shoot us a message and we'll get you involved. Okay, so while Noel does his magic, Jen has, I'll just bring Jen back in. Jen has done a lovely 2-minute image. What are we looking at here, Jen?
This is NGC 253.
GC 253.
Which they also call it the Silver Coin Galaxy, I think.
You do, yes. Sculptor Galaxy as well.
And the sculpture, yep.
Yeah, Silver Dollar Galaxy.
Plenty of names, this one.
Oh, discovered by Carolyn Herschel in 1783 while she was doing a bit of comet hunting.
I love this object because it always shows so well up at our dark side. It's obviously a very big object in the eyepiece, but you can see quite a lot of what I call granularity. So where you can start to, it's not just a fuzzy blob. You can actually see things almost inside the galaxy. It's in our local group, I think, isn't it? It's fairly close.
Okay, so Jen, are you able to zoom in a little bit on that?
Yep.
Just bring it up a little bit for us. Show some of that beautiful detail. It is a lovely object, that's for sure. So it sits at an apparent magnitude of about 8. And it has, they believe it has a supermassive black hole at the center of that galaxy that is estimated to be 5 million times that of our sun.
And it's pretty close. It's 12 million light years away.
It's not far, is it, when you think about it?
Oh. It's probably beyond where we can go with COVID lockdown, though, at the moment.
It's 90,000 light years across, so it's not quite as big as the Milky Way. There you go. So, Noel, how are you going with your stacked image there of the Gruz Quartet?
Yep, it's coming through nicely. So I've got the 4 on the screen, just.
Yep. Shall we pop that on then?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
No worries.
All right, there we go. So we've got, oh, there we go. Yep, the 4th one to the bottom there.
Awesome, yeah.
We've got the 3. So the good old Gruz Quartet. It is a favourite visual, that's for sure.
So to set these in context with, say, NGC 253, which was 12 million light years away, these are over 60 million light years away. So the light from these set off just after the dinosaurs died out here on Earth.
And they also say that they're close enough that they'll be interacting with each other. And there's a lot of starburst activity between NGC 7552 and 7582, which they believe arises from a tidal galaxy interactions and subsequent formations of the bar disks.
So that bottom one there, you can just see the arms coming, or the top arm
yeah.
on the bar.
Yeah, you can just make out the top bar and the bottom bar there. Oh, thank you, Noel. Oh, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Absolutely beautiful. You should be able to make out those arms there. One on the top there sweeping to the left and the bottom one sweeping to the right. So while we're having a look at that, Julie wants to know, is there a possibility that there are habitable planets inside some of these? I'm assuming there when she was talking about NGC 253, but even any of these galaxies.
I guess my answer to that would be almost certainly.
Yeah, it would have to be. Okay. There we go. Rob has just put us on there. Put a comment on there. On average, each galaxy has one inhabited planet, and you would think that would be about right. Adet wants to know, why are some bars horizontal and some vertical?
I'm sort of trying to interpret that question a little bit. Perhaps it's the question is.
I'm thinking why some appear. I'm thinking what she means, and you might want to clarify this for us, Adet. I'm thinking why some of them appear like that visually, and some appear like like that visually. So vertical versus horizontal when we're looking at them. And Julie, yes, we are going to need a bigger boat. Definitely going to. So where are you moving to now, Noel?
Well, I had.
Visually, there we go. So exactly what I was describing, I'm assuming, Adet, whether you're talking. So visually, you see some like that and some like that. So I would put that down to just the sheer expansion of the universe, and some are in some direction, some are going in other directions. And I'm not sure that there's a decent explanation to that one, Steve, as to why some are horizontal and some are vertical. Just assume it's just based on
Bit of chaos.
The chaos of the universe and what direction they're flying out from and how they're formed.
Within a galaxy, because there's spin, they all tend to. Like the Milky Way, we're spinning around the black hole in the center of the galaxy. So when there's spin involved in gravity, everything sort of tends to eventually, I think it's through physics, ends up on that accretion disk, that sort of same plane. But once you go between galaxies, that doesn't apply anymore. There's a bit of gravitational attraction between those objects, but not in the sense that there's a kind of a spin attraction. I don't know whether that kind of...
I think that's exactly what we're talking about. That kind of answers it. Okay, so is it possible that some of these bodies are now gone? So some of the objects we're looking at no longer exist? I suppose the answer to that would be yes. It's possible, isn't it? Considering how far away they are and how long the light's taken to get to us.
I mean, a galaxy is a pretty stable object, and it just doesn't suddenly kind of pop out of existence. So it's unlikely. You'd have to find some of the very earliest objects to see them disappear. I mean, even, I was reading something about when we eventually, when the Milky Way merges with the Andromeda galaxy, which is our nearest galaxy. It's slightly bigger than the Milky Way. The two will come together because they're gravitationally attracted. But they're not suddenly going to sort of smash into one another and blow into smithereens. For most of the objects in the galaxy, the stars and the planets that are revolving around those stars, life will just carry on as kind of normal, really.
All right, I've got another one for you while Noel does a bit of stacking there. Marissa wants to know, is there a black hole at the center of every galaxy, and don't black holes suck everything in?
I think more and more they're thinking, yes, there definitely is a black hole at the center of every galaxy. It's the reason for why galaxies exist almost. Don't black holes suck everything in? Well, they kind of do, but not that quickly.
No, you need to be close enough to be drawn into it, don't you?
You sort of spin round and round for a long time.
We were talking about this on the junior stream earlier about the point of no return, the event horizon, and what happens when you get past the event horizon, and the old theory of spaghettification. Yeah. So black holes do suck a lot of stuff in, but it does, like you're saying, Steve, it does take a long time to happen.
It's a bit like Dan's COVID horizon, isn't it?
It's kind of there, but not quite ever there. So Mandy said, thank you. This is very interesting and addictive. Do you guys survive on minimal sleep? Astronomers don't really sleep very much at all, do we? I know that I've had some deep sky sessions where we've been out till 3 or 4 in the morning, and I know Paul, the section director, has had some deep sky nights where he has seen the sunrise. So,
I often feel guilty because I've gone to bed at 2 in the morning.
It's kind of like that, isn't it? It's like, but there's still so much night. There's still so much night and things to see. There was a deep sky, or it might have been even a star party a few years back where I was up there. We were up there with Astro Blake, my son, and the latest he'd stayed up, and he was only about he would have been 11, I think, and it was like 4:30 in the morning before I could convince him it was time to go to bed. And he was 11 years old. So yeah, once you get addicted, you are addicted, and sleep is like it's irrelevant, really. You just want to use as much of the night sky as you can.
Yeah, and it does depend on the time of the year as well, being sort of serious about it. So in the winter, we can be viewing from 6:30, and so by midnight you have had quite a few hours to view the night sky, and because you get quite a bit more dew on the scopes in the cold weather, sometimes you're dewed up and you have to go to bed. In the summer months, we don't really get started until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. So you feel a bit cheated then. But the nice thing, obviously, in the summer is you can be there in just a jumper rather than having to rug up.
Very true. Now, Noel, while you do some stacks on this, Jen has got NGC 300 up. Now, Jen, how many stacks? Oh, this is obviously another 2-minute single-click image.
This one's 3 minutes.
3 minutes, 3-minute exposure of the NGC 300.
Plus clouds.
Plus NGC 300 plus clouds in the constellation of Sculptor. It's a spiral galaxy, and it's one of the closest in our local group. And it's the brightest of the 5 main spirals in the direction of the Sculptor group. And it's angled at 42 degrees when viewed from Earth, and shares many characteristics of the Triangulum galaxy. What do we got? We're looking at a distance or an apparent magnitude of 9. Distance of, I can't quite find that one. Sorry, guys.
6.6.
6.6 light years away.
A million light years.
Million light years away. That's right. 6.6.
So very close. Very close indeed.
Very close when we're talking galaxies. I don't know if I can find. I'm trying to find out who discovered this one. I can't seem to find anything anywhere. But I can tell you that they say that the X-ray source at the core of NGC 300 is potentially a binary black hole system. So that's quite interesting. You're right, Adrian. It's not an easy image to capture. Jen has some pretty schmick equipment in her cozy, over-insulated roll-off observatory with her warm room.
Here right now.
Yeah, she's very warm in there. It could be snowing outside, and she would be warm in there. Am I right, Jen?
That's correct.
Yeah. So she's done pretty well to do that setup. So Noel, have you got yours stacked a little bit more?
Yeah, it's not coming through as good as I'd hoped, but this is NGC 6744. It's a fairly distant, well, small, distant, whatever. It's small on the screen.
So what was the NGC?
6744.
6744. Jen,
Yeah.
I might ask Jen and see if she can try and image that one as well.
But this is about as good as it's getting for me at the moment. And I'm thinking I'm going to pick a couple of big targets next.
Yeah, so this is the in Parvo. So it's probably the second. I think it's the second most popular object to look at after the globular cluster in Parvo. But it's obviously quite a small object, 30 million light years away. And it's pretty bright. It's 8.27, but must be quite a small.
So just quickly back on NGC 300, we have an answer on who discovered it. Thank you, Make More Memories. Mr. James Dunlop, our lovely Scottish Aussie astronomer. And I'm tipping if he's discovered it, he's done it from good old Doesn't Matter Parramatta. And that's where he discovered most of his objects. So I reckon we've got time for maybe one or two more objects, and I think there might be time to pack it up because I've just had a look at the time, guys. It's not quite off 11 p.m. So Noel, while you're looking for your last object, Jen has got a stacked image of the southern pinwheel. So I might try and get her to bring that one up, and we'll pop that on the screen and have a chat about the southern pinwheel while you do your imaging there.
Mark, have we got many people on the call, or are we talking to ourselves?
No, we've got 150 people watching at the moment, so we're not talking to ourselves, that's for sure.
Well done.
This is a good question. While we're waiting, what does NGC mean?
New General Catalogue.
So what is a New General Catalogue?
I'll have to Google the detail. It follows on. There used to be lots of sort of individual, everyone had his own catalogue kind of thing, you know, like Charles Messier had his catalogue and so on. And then it was decided to develop something a little bit more central as well. But sorry, I don't know the detail. There's an extension which is called the IC catalogue as well. So NGC is about, I think it's about 5,000 objects, something like that. And then there's the IC extension of that as well, which adds a lot more.
So there we go. Sorry, it was Andy that had a stacked image of southern pinwheel. So this is a stacked image from the southern pinwheel from Andy.
Oh, well done, Andy.
Okay, so added on to that question, does that mean it's a general object, not a specific star, for example?
Yeah, so the NGC catalogue doesn't include any stars. It's all what we might call deep sky objects. So open clusters, globular clusters, nebulae, galaxies, planetary nebulae. The stars have their own catalogues. There's a lot of stars out there.
There is, isn't there? Okay, so we have another question for you. It's not related to what we've been looking at tonight, but it is an interesting question. How clearly could you see the ISS with an 8-inch Dob? Pretty clearly. I've tracked it across the sky at Heathcote before.
The challenge is the tracking, isn't it? Because you can certainly see the solar panels through a telescope, but it's I did it once with somebody where we had somebody tracking the ISS using the finder scope and keeping the ISS as it moved in the middle of the crossed hairs, and then the lucky person looking through the eyepiece and then catching it occasionally as it came into the field of view.
Yeah. So I've done the same thing, tried to find it, and I've followed it in the eyepiece of an 8-inch Dob, and just literally dragged the scope, following it very quickly. It moves so fast through the sky. It's not an easy object to track manually, that's for sure. But yes, you're right. You can see the solar panels on it. You can make them out, that's for sure.
Because it's in low Earth orbit, isn't it? So it's not very high up.
So Noel's got Sadie's favourites. Tarantula Nebula. Absolutely stunning. We do love the Tarantula Nebula. I think it's a perfect one to finish on, to be honest. So it's got a 930 light year radius, the Tarantula Nebula. Beautiful.
So I think the thinking is that because this is in the Large Magellanic Cloud, so it's 160,000 light years away, compared with the Orion Nebula, which is the Orion Nebula about, is it 10,000 light years away, something like that?
Yeah. Now I know Darren has some very interesting stats on this.
Oh, go for it, Darren.
So just no, keep talking, because he's going to have to type them to me because we can't get him in. But
the view is that if the Tarantula Nebula, because it's a huge nebula, it's a huge star,
massive, yeah. And this is what Darren's going to tell me.
If it were as close to us as the Orion Nebula, which is a bright object, but if the Tarantula Nebula were in that space in the sky, it would cast shadows at night. It would be incredibly bright.
Yeah, so Darren's going to hopefully throw through some data on that, or some notes on that, that's for sure. Here he goes, he's typing now. So once we've had a look at this, Jen's taken a 3-minute exposure of another galaxy for us, which we'll probably finish on, I think. So that'll be the last one for the night.
While Darren's talking there, you can see that the LMC, the Large Magellanic Cloud, is a wonderful star-forming area. There's nebulosity all over the place in the LMC, and you can actually see some of the nebulosity outside of the Tarantula Nebula over to the left there in particular, and then those open clusters and things like that. It's a fantastic space.
It is, yeah. There's lots of little nebulosity just sort of potted around that whole edge of that cloud area. Here's a very good question. Oh, hang on. No, this one. Sorry, Carissa, we'll come back to yours because that's a good one as well. How many stars are visible with the naked eye, assuming good location? It's not a great deal. It's not a great deal, if I remember correctly.
I think it's a few hundred.
Yeah, it's not like I don't know if Neil's still hanging around, but I know Neil has he'll know that answer to that question. Yeah.
What was the other one that popped up?
The other one here. If this is in the Magellanic Cloud, are there nebulas in the Milky Way, and can we see any?
Yes, so we were looking at some earlier on. So the Lagoon Nebula is the Trifid Nebula, good examples, but there's loads of them. The Orion Nebula, which is the one I was talking about earlier. Probably the Orion Nebula is the most well-known of the nebulas reasonably close by. If you don't know where it is, well, in the northern hemisphere, it's the sword that drops below Orion's belt. In the southern hemisphere, it's the handle of the pan. That's the Orion.
So how's that? Neil has jumped in there. 2,000 in a single night, but that's from a dark sky site when your eyes are adapted. So just going back to Tarantula Nebula, Darren's letting me know that it's 30 degrees wide if it was at the same distance away from Earth as the Orion Nebula, and that the radiation would be potentially harmful to us on Earth. So essentially, Tarantula Nebula is 100 times bigger than Orion Nebula.
It's a beast.
It's a beast, and it's beautiful, and it does look like a spider dead on its back. Hang on, I'm just going to have to pop this back, and like you've just imagined a spider dead on its back like that. And that to me is what it looks like. Here's another good question. What is the largest nebula? It's a good question. Might have to take that one on notice, I think. I don't know if I don't know the answer to that one. Have you got any ideas on that?
Well, in terms of its actual size, or in terms of its how we see it from Earth, I suppose there are areas of nebulosity that cover huge areas. You know, like the Vela Nebula, California Nebula, and those are really big, but they're not very bright.
Visual size, he's saying. So Steve's curious. Oh, there we go. Tarantula is the largest visual size. We've had an answer thrown in there. There we go. So I'm just going to jump across to Jen's image of NGC 6744. So I'll just bring Jen back in for a second. So this is a 3-minute stacked image of NGC 6744. So do you know, what have we got? What have we got about NGC 6744?
You can definitely see it's a face-on spiral there, can't you?
Yeah, intermediate spiral galaxy. We're talking something that's 30 million light years away, and it is in Parvo. Parvo's got some good galaxies in it. It's considered a mimic of the Milky Way galaxy due to its fluffy flocculent arms and elongated core. Magnitude 9 is NGC 6744.
Now, interestingly, I can see, if you look around that image above NGC 6744, can you see that the faint vertical one?
Yep, I can see that. I'm not sure if anyone else can see that.
Can you see down below at the bottom of the screen? There's something there as well.
To the bottom. Yeah, two little fuzzies there. Yep, we can see two little fuzzies.
I don't know if what we're seeing is what everyone else sees.
See if we can zoom it. Can we make that a little bit bigger there, Jen? Yeah. See if we can scroll down there and have a look down. Or are we going up the top? Or we're going down first? Yeah, so that looks to me like two little fuzzies, doesn't it?
Some there too.
Oh, there's another one there as well. So there's three little fuzzies hiding in that photo. And then if you scroll up, yeah, that like just stop there. Yeah, right there. And it looks like you got a satellite running through as well.
Photo bombed.
Come back to the main galaxy again. There's NGC 6744A, which hangs off the end of one of the spiral arms, quite a way out, somewhere perhaps down at the bottom, or I can't see. The image that I've got in Sky Safari very clearly shows that, but it's out on one of the edges of the spiral arms. I'm just looking around to see if we can see it.
Might see.
That's it.
All right. What are fuzzies? Sorry, I called them fuzzies. Very, very small, faint, tiny little galaxies hidden in the background of images. That would be a good description of fuzzies, would it not?
Faint fuzzies, yeah.
Faint fuzzies, yeah. I think that's a pretty apt description of fuzzies. Sorry, I should have explained that one a bit clearer. I've become one of them. It's only taken 5 or 6 years, and I've become one of them, haven't I? But yes, sometimes you'll see in an image, or even visually, you'll see just this tiny little faint fuzzy object, and you just call them fuzzies. That's what we end up calling them.
It's sort of like the inverse of what you would see through like Hubble, where you get these fantastic images,
Yeah,
and we get joy out of seeing the most obscure, faint object.
we do. We do. When you manage to get a tiny little galaxy in an eyepiece of a small telescope that you never thought you were actually going to be able to get, and you look through it and you see it, and you just go, okay, wow, that's amazing. I honestly never thought I'd see that object, that galaxy that is so far away, appearing in a telescope. You just go, it's a wonderful feeling.
Just to give you an idea, that NGC 6744A, which we think is that faint fuzzy just off to the right of the main galaxy there, is magnitude 15, over magnitude 15.15. So that's beyond what you would be able to see with very good seeing through something like a 10 or a 12. A 12-inch telescope will see up to sort of magnitude 14 or so, but the seeing would have to be very good. It would have to be very dark. Yeah. You're beyond that. And Jen, this is capturing the light for an extended period of time compared with what we see with our eyes, is able to do these kind of things.
Yeah. So we have an explanation of fuzzies that I think is great. Fuzzies are how galaxies appear when you play the Noel Neal drinking game too long. Adet wants to know, does Sky Safari tell you what the fuzzy is? If it's catalogued, it would, wouldn't it? If it's an object that is known and catalogued, it would be in there, wouldn't it? Obviously, with Sky Safari, you're probably going to have the paid version. Because the free version doesn't have everything in it.
So the plus version, which is the one that costs about $20, has a very big database. The pro version, which is what I've got because I bought it when it was half price, has an even bigger database. And then there are add-ins as well, which will increase the number of stars that are catalogued and also the number of galaxies as well, up to sort of potentially, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of galaxies in the database, perhaps even millions.
Yeah, yes. Wonderful. All right. So I think that sort of brings us to the end. I'll bring Andy in as well. So Andy's been helping out. Darren, I can't bring in because his stream's not working, but he's been feeding us in the background. So thank you to Noel and to Andy and to Jen. Jen's probably the coziest of... I know she probably would be the coziest of all of us, even though 3 of us are in houses and Andy's sitting out in a little, almost tent, like a Portaloo tent thing. Out in the middle of nowhere. Jen would still be the warmest of all of us. Thank you guys for letting us use your equipment. And thank you, Steve, for your knowledge. And thank you, Darren, for feeding me information via Messenger. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. And we will be back tomorrow. We have the Q&A panel tomorrow, and we also have the radio astronomy stream tomorrow. And good old me, I don't actually have my... I don't have the... What time they're on. That's very smart of me. I probably should have had that. Noel, you might know. You've helped me put this together with Linda. Well, what time is Q&A?
They're both queued up on the both platforms and Facebook and YouTube, and I'm just going to bring up the program itself.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you very much. It's been a very big weekend. Oh, I like this one. While we're waiting, many thanks, all great night viewing and Noel Neal drinking. I hope you guys did actually play The drinking game. Jen did. There you go. So there we go. So the Q&A panel is at 1 p.m. We have a very good collection of people on. One of our panel members has had to drop out, unfortunately, but we've got 5 great panel members tomorrow that will appear to answer all your questions. And I think 3 p.m. was radio, if I remember right, maybe a bit later.
Yeah, 3 p.m.
3 o'clock, radio astronomy. So we've got an 8.5 metre dish up at the dark sky site. And one of our radio guys is going to jump on with me, and he's going to control that telescope, or that radio telescope, and move it around to some objects and share some radio astronomy with everybody. We'll also have Clint, the section director of radio astronomy, join us to answer any questions you've got for the radio astronomy guys, who do a lot of scientific work up at the dark sky site. And Rob, yes, Rob, see you at 3 p.m. Rob Arrowsmith will be joining me tomorrow along with Clint Jeffrey for the radio astronomy. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And Jen has just told me she's got 3 minutes on the Helix Nebula. So I'm going to just pop that up and let's have a quick peek at the 3 minutes of the Helix Nebula, and then let's rock and roll and finish the night from there. That is a beautiful image, Jen. I think you might need to take a lot more data, stack it, process it, and let me share that one to the general public.
I will do. I'm working on that one now. So, yeah.
Wonderful. All right. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 1 o'clock for the Q&A panel. Make sure you got plenty of questions lined up for the guys. I will feed them to them as quickly as I can for them to answer. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everyone.